Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 102.5. The Game. Caroline Fenton is here today. We are delivered by TriStar Moving, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Ian Safar is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So I'm going to answer the question Caroline said about how am I doing. I'm doing bad today.
Why are you doing bad?
Because I need Darren McFarland to get off the call screener.
Well, send him a strongly worded text message.
I did. It was 2 words. Call screener.
And I think he'll get the gist from
I think he will. Let me see if
so.
let me click it here. See if that. Let's see. Here we go. 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 Wait. We're good. All right.
Woo-hoo!
Way to go.
Thank you, Darren.
So this year's weird, right? 17 games in an NFL season. When's the last time we had 17 games in an NFL season? Never. So here we are with 17 games in an NFL season, right? Well, the fourth game is usually like the line of demarcation as to, like, the season is no longer young after 4 weeks in an NFL season. Because now you're into the second, fourth of the year. Like, we've all been there. Like, do you remember school? I know you remember school. Ian, I'm sure you remember school. Like, the first couple of days, you get the syllabus, and they tell you, hey, this is what, Dr. Johnson is going to expect out of you this semester. And then, hey, let's take out our textbooks to page 4, and let's talk about this. And you don't even really have anything due until, like, the 5th or 6th day of class. But then once you're in for 4 weeks, like, everything is normal. Tests are on the reg. Quizzes are on the reg. Projects got to get done. Things like that. So once you get 4 weeks into the NFL season, for the most part, you know if you're bad and you know if you're good. And then everybody else is just kind of there in the middle. And the teams that are there in the middle are so desperate to be good. And so this is when you start to see roster moves made. Last week, Jacksonville and Carolina pulled off a trade. Today, I woke up and I saw the news that Stefan Gilmore, the star corner in New England, was out. There had been grumblings for a year that Gilmore wanted a new contract or he wanted out of New England. And we all know that Bill Belichick usually doesn't give in to demands when you say, I want a new contract or I'm out. Bill usually doesn't play that kind of game. And so he went on the PUP list, and the Patriots were looking at alternatives, what they could do here, what they could do there, and they announced this morning, all right, Stephon Gilmore, we're just going to let him go. Stefan can go wherever he wants, and we thank him for his service. And I think Bill Belichick even put out a statement today thanking Stephon Gilmore for everything that he's done. And when the Patriots signed Stephon Gilmore in 2018, and in 2018, 2019, Stephon Gilmore was a bad boy. One of the best corners in the NFL, if not the best corner in the NFL. That's what made it so amazing that for one game in November of 2018, Marcus Mariota and Corey Davis embarrassed Stephon Gilmore. I will never understand how that happened, but it did. But so, as with what usually happens when a star player gets released, this morning, Titans Twitter, we got to go get Stephon Gilmore. We have to have him. John Robinson, you got to go get Stephon Gilmore. I mean, think about it. Jack Rabbit stinks, and the corners are this, and they're that. And all I could hear when I was looking at Twitter of all the Titan fans that were jumping up and down about, we got to get him, got to get him, got to get him, got to get him. All I could think was, how many times we've done this show, and it's been Antonio Brown. We got to have him, Jared. We have got to trade for A.B. We went through that. Floyd said no. Odell Beckham Jr., we've got to have him. Floyd said no. Le'Veon Bell released by the Jets. No. Leonard Fournette cut by the Jags. No. Clowney. We said no. Titans ended up doing it. How'd that work out for you? Remember when Amari Cooper hit the trading block when he was at the Raiders? And there was a lot of talk about the Titans. And would the Titans give up their first-round pick in order to get Amari Cooper? And what apparently was the holdup was the Titans were willing to give up the 2019 first-rounder, which ended up being Jeffrey Simmons. They were willing to give up that pick, But they wanted to switch spots in the second with the Raiders, and the Raiders weren't interested in that, so it didn't work out. He ended up going to the Cowboys for the Cowboys' first-round pick. But everybody said then, we got to get Amari Cooper. We've got to have Amari Cooper. And Caroline got her first experience of that this, summer, spring, when you want to. We've got to have Julio Jones. And they went out and got him. And how's that working out right now? This is the thing that I've come to realize is kind of inevitable as far as the fans are concerned. They will always, and I'm not here to knock on the fans, but they'll always want the big name because they'll remember what the big name did at one point that got the big name the big name. They'll look back at that and say, hey, this was the big name. And Odell Beckham's a superstar. And, Jared, we don't have any Odell Beckhams. And every time, I think that's not how you win in the NFL. You don't win in the NFL by paying players for what they did. And people will say, well, look at Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay. Antonio Brown is like $1 million in Tampa Bay. They're not paying him any serious money in Tampa Bay. That's how you succeed in free agency. You don't succeed by taking a guy who his team does not think he's worth it and then give him and invest and invest and invest and then have success. That's not how the NFL works. Did you see what Stefan Gilmore got traded for today?
Not a lot.
A 2023 sixth-round pick. So John Robinson was not willing to either do that or maybe just a tiny little bit more. Like, I'm sure if you had called Belichick and offered a 2023 fifth, Bill would have done it. Because his fifth is better than a sixth. Bill Belichick may not even be the coach of the Patriots in 2023. And Bill Belichick just made that trade. So I have to give John Robinson credit today because he did the right thing, which he didn't go out and spend what limited cap space they have and what limited draft capital they have on an aging, once was great corner. Now, people will say, well, Jared, he's better than Jack Rabbit Jenkins. Yes, but Jack Rabbit Jenkins is already under contract. And it's not like because you trade for Stefan Gilmore that the money you owe Jack Rabbit Jenkins just goes away. So that's not really how this works in the NFL. And so fans today, they were clamoring that, oh, my God, got to make a move, got to make a move, got to make a move. Guys, for the most part, the moves that will define the Titans, those are over. And the reason those are over are because of moves that you all liked. You all liked Caleb Farley when they drafted him in the first round. We were over there saying at the time of the draft when Chris Sanders had a meltdown, we were saying, the guy's injured. Are you sure you want to take an injured player? Other teams around the league were saying not interested because he's injured. And you all said, no, he could be the best corner in the draft. We got to take him. So they did. They took him. You liked it. Julio Jones. No other team in the league was willing to do what you did. A second-round pick and all of the money for Julio Jones. I'm not trying to throw Floyd under the bus here or John Robinson. Floyd would have never, ever, ever made that trade. Ever. Ian, is it fair to say that? I feel like kind of wrong to say that he wouldn't do something. Like, speak for him. We know how mad he used to get.
Ever. I tend to agree.
Me putting words in his mouth.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I guess you'd never say never, but I do tend to agree with you, yeah.
Yeah, he never would have done that. And so the moves that you all like, those are the moves that have to work. There is no miracle rope this season that you can pull on that all of a sudden is Titans' problems are fixed. That time for that already happened. The moves that you all liked, the moves that you all wanted, they made. And guess what? They haven't worked out so far through a fourth of the season. Now, maybe Caleb Farley goes in there and is the best lockdown corner in the NFL. And if he does go down in there and is the best lockdown corner in the NFL and was worth the risk of the draft pick, then it's a good thing that you didn't trade anything or eat up any capital in order to go get Stephon Gilmore. But this is the reality of the NFL. The Titans cannot go get every player that just becomes available. And it would not be wise for them to go out and get every player who just becomes available. Think about the two moves over the last 2 years that you guys have just truly wanted. That this show, whether it was Floyd and I or whether it was Caroline and I, that said, I don't know about that move, Bob. Floyd and I adamantly didn't want Clowney. You all wanted him. How'd that work out? You know, that $12.5 million that you gave Clowney to give you no sacks would have been enough had it rolled over to this year to keep Jonnu Smith. By the way, everyone keeps asking questions to Ryan Tannehill today about the red zone. And what happens? You know, you get down to the red zone, you can't this, you can't. Jonnu Smith had 8 touchdowns last year. They could use Jonnu Smith today. And I have no idea what he's doing in New England or what he's not doing in New England. I'm just saying, the Jonnu Smith that was here, they could use that in the red zone. And the other move was Julio. And they made that move. And I still, to this day, I know Julio has helped them out this year. It certainly helped them out more than AJ. But that Julio Jones move right now is not paying what it's worth. The $15 million, the second-round pick, you need to be able to beat the Jets when you make moves like that. They don't have a tight end. They don't have a right tackle. And everybody else wants Stephon Gilmore. So I have to say this. The Titans did the right thing today, not putting themselves into the Stefan Gilmore discussion, sweepstakes, whatever. They did the right thing. But the one thing I have to say is you can't have interest in every washed-up player who was once good. You know the last time that a player who wanted out of New England in the middle of the season got out and ended up on the Titans? His name was Randy Moss. Who remembers that? 2010. Moss revitalizes his career in 2007 in New England. He plays really well in the Matt Castle year 2008. And in 2009, I think this was the 2009 season actually, but maybe it was 2009, 2010. Moss doesn't like his contract, doesn't like New England anymore, all of a sudden goes back to being the old Moss. Belichick sends him back to Minnesota. He goes back to Minnesota. He acts like Randy in Minnesota. They put him on waivers, and the Titans claimed him. And I remember when they claimed Randy Moss, and I was in the women's basketball office at the University of Louisville, and I was like, we just got Randy Moss. Super Bowl, here we come. I'm not even sure Randy Moss had a catch that year for the Titans. And we all know, it didn't work out between him and Jeff Fisher. So, again, the name Stephon Gilmore, it came up. It's a big name. It's fans. We got to have him, got to have him, got to have him. The Titans made the right call today. The Titans made the right call. I'm not saying that there aren't moves that they shouldn't make for the roster right now because the roster, to me, has some issues. But we can't just get excited every time a big name comes open. We have to be realistic here. And John Robinson has to be smart. You're not going to get better by adding aging players with big contracts. This is the NFL, and that is not how you succeed. When guys are available, they're available for one of 4 reasons. Caroline, do you know what those 4 reasons are?
He's old. He's hurt.
That's one of them.
He's expensive.
That's another one.
He is, I don't know, too old.
He's hurt.
Too expensive.
Costs too much money. Bad player. Bad guy. One of those 4 reasons is why someone's available. And so in this case, Gilmore's getting a little too old. You want the Gilmore from 2 years ago. I'm guessing he's not the Gilmore from 2 years ago, or else Belichick would have paid him. And so this is the one thing that I look back on today, and I see they got rid of Stephon Gilmore, that Stephon Gilmore you want, so they could go sign Jamie Collins. And I don't want any part of Jamie Collins on the Titans either. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. And here's the other thing. They're not getting rid of Jackrabbit. I know, I told you all when they signed him. I said he's going to be like Malcolm Butler. It's going to cost less money, but it'll be the same. And for the first 2 months that Malcolm Butler was a Titan, you all hated him too because he got burned deep on almost every play. And it was the exact same thing. He was staring at the quarterback in the backfield, and the receiver got behind him. And it's the same thing that came with Jack Rabbit Jenkins. Now, he'll make some plays, and he'll be fine. He's a starting caliber corner in the NFL, but they're not getting rid of him. So I know a lot of you are unhappy with him. I'm unhappy with him, but they're not getting rid of him. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. On the other side, given the cost of Stephon Gilmore, does it make us maybe think a little bit deeper about some of the things the Titans have been doing lately? We'll discuss next. Stillman and Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. And, of course, we're streaming on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and the Game Nashville app. Our streaming brought to you by the law offices of Amanda Gentry. It's ESPN 1025 The Game.
Stefan Gilmore, the former Patriots corner, is now headed to the Carolina Panthers.
Whoa.
The Carolina Panthers have now traded for Stephon Gilmore. It is a 2023 sixth-round pick going to New England for Gilmore. So for the Carolina Panthers, who already made a big-time corner trade, they now make another big-time corner trade. This is interesting for many levels. First of all, I am told Gilmore must stay on the PUP list now because the Panthers traded for him. Had he been released, he would have been off the PUP list because they traded for him. He now stays and cannot play until week 6. Here's another interesting wrinkle. Stefan Gilmore is going home. This is basically where he lives. He actually has a house next to general manager Scott Fitterer, a couple houses away. They can now talk about things because they are on the same team. Another big-time trade.
There you go. That was NFL Network. Stephon Gilmore, a 2023 sixth.
Yes.
Titans overpaid for Julio Jones? Because I saw that. I mean, and I'm just looking at it like this. You know me. You know I love real estate, right? Like buying and selling. And I look at that stuff to death. When I bought my first house, there was another house I looked at that I looked at and I loved it. But I was like, I can't afford that house. And then after I bought my house, I saw that house was on the market for a while. So later I went back and I saw how much it went for. And I'm like, if I knew that they were going to take that offer, I'd have bought that house instead of this house. But I didn't know that. The Titans traded a second-round pick in next year's draft for Julio Jones. The Panthers traded a 2023 sixth in exchange. To put this into perspective, in order to get Stephon Gilmore, the Carolina Panthers traded away what you got in return for Kamalei Correa, which also happens to be what you traded in order to get Kamalei Correa. Think about that. We already know, and I don't need any sourcing on this, it's the obvious. We already know that the Titans were the only team in the entire NFL that was going to pay Julio his full salary and give up a second-round pick. We were critical of the move when it happened. And while Julio's done some nice things this year, you and I were talking about during the break, what he's done so far is not worth the money and the pick. Mm-hmm. I mean, a 2020, a second-round pick is supposed to be a good player. I know the Titans haven't had a lot of luck recently with some of these draft picks, but a second-round pick is supposed to be a good player. In fact, if you look at the second-round picks in the Titans, Derrick Henry was a second-round pick. A.J. Brown was a second-round pick. Christian Fulton was a second-round pick. They've done okay in the second round. And you look at what Stephon Gilmore went for, and I'm like, holy smokes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you think that the Titans overpaid for Julio, given what the Stephon Gilmore thinks of?
Well, before the Stephon Gilmore trade, I thought the Titans overpaid for Julio.
Sure.
The day it happened, I thought the Titans overpaid for Julio. So, yes, after seeing this Stephon Gilmore trade, even more so, I think it just solidifies the fact that the Titans overpaid for Julio. But I think you also have to look at it from a lens of what does the league value more, a wide receiver or a corner? Obviously, you're going to pay bigger money for a wide receiver of the caliber of Julio Jones rather than a corner. So I think it's tough to compare those two.
Is it, though, from this standpoint? Stephon Gilmore was the Defensive Player of the Year
only 2 years ago.
Julio, like when we talk about Julio, now this isn't like Carson Wentz where we have to go all the way back 4 years to find something good. I mean, we've seen good from Julio. Yeah. But Julio, I mean, I don't think any of us thought Julio, except for Harry Douglas, I don't think any of us thought that Julio was the best player at that position in the game.
At one point in time, 100%.
But not anytime recently.
Right now.
Whereas Stephon Gilmore was the lockdown corner in the NFL 2 years ago. And last year, I think he played hurt a little bit last year or something. I mean, the truth is I think Belichick saw that the caliber of player he was going to be in the future was a decent enough player, but it wasn't going to be the caliber of player that he had been in the past. And that's why Bill was not going to give him anything past this year. It's a lot like Logan Ryan. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Titans had a hard time paying Logan Ryan the $10 million in the third year of his contract. But I don't think that they were interested in giving Logan Ryan any more money after that. And I think that's where Belichick was on Gilmore. And we know that Atlanta had to get rid of Julio. That's the other thing.
They had no cap space left. And I think that's one thing that I thought was interesting was I was like, well, the Patriots had to get rid of Stephon Gilmore. His contract was expiring. But it was the same situation in Atlanta. They had no cap space left. They had no choice but to give up Julio Jones. So I thought that would drive the price down a little bit. Obviously, I mean, I don't know what the behind-the-scenes trade talk was for Stephon Gilmore, but I have to think that the Patriots had to bring down their price a little bit in order to get rid of him.
Oh, sure. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, when he, when it was debatable whether or not he'd show up for camp, I'm sure if you picked up the phone that day and you called the Patriots, they want a first or second round pick now.
Oh, 100%.
Not a 2023 sixth. I mean, the truth is they announced this morning they were going to release him. And Carolina called and said, whoa. Let's just get him so that we don't have to deal with 30 other clubs trying to sign him. And it's like, all right, what are you going to give us? God, what's the worst thing we can give you? A 2023 seventh. No.
Maybe a little bit better than that.
A 2023 sixth. Okay.
Sold.
All right. That's better than nothing. Bill may not even be the coach in 2023 in New England.
You don't think so?
I mean, Bill's old.
Well, I think Bill will be out on the field until the day he dies.
See, I don't think that's true.
Why?
Because, football coaching is hard.
Yeah.
I mean.
But I feel like Bill's the kind of guy that, that's his life. Doesn't matter if it's hard. Doesn't matter if you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to bed at midnight.
It is his life, but I just can't. I mean,
Bill's a football guy.
I'm not saying I can't see Bill on the field in 2023. I'm just saying I think there's a chance Bill is
there could be
not
a possibility
on the field in 2023.
But I'm going to put my money on him being the coach in 2023.
I'll say this, and I don't put any emphasis on Julio. I don't look at Julio and say, hey, you got to do better. I look at Robinson, and I'm like, you've got to get more. Mm-hmm. You've got to get more out of Julio Jones for what you gave up. You've got to get more. And so, I don't know, the hamstring thing. Every time you do this, you criticize something for someone that's hurt. Everybody gets mad into the text line, and they yell and they scream, and they're like, well, Jared, what are you supposed to expect? And I'm like, look, man, life is about rolling the dice. And when you roll the dice and you take the risk you take, this is a possibility. And when this happens, you're not only $15 million in the can on this, but you're also a second-round pick. And you look at Stefan Gilmore going for a 2023 sixth, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know the old saying about listening to the fans?
When you listen to the fans, soon you become one?
Yep. Pretty soon you're sitting with them.
Mm-hmm.
These moves that we have not liked. We did not like Clowney. We were so against Clowney. And that probably came with a little bit more weight because Floyd was very against Clowney. And the Julio thing, which I didn't like. I say I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either.
But those moves, the fans love. And it's like, man, those moves can just bite you in the butt.
Well, they're sexy moves whenever they first happen. Whenever Julio first came to the Titans, that's all anyone wanted to talk about was Julio Jones. This offense with Julio Jones. Because it's a sexy thing to talk about. It's
sure,
fun.
That's talked about on TV.
That's a name. It gets you talked about on ESPN, gets you talked about on SportsCenter, but sometimes names don't necessarily bring the same amount of success that they had in the past.
All right, let's get to your phones on it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman & Company. FanDuel Sportsbook, that's my official sportsbook app. NFL Week 5 is here, and FanDuel Sportsbook wants you to get the most out of every play. That's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet every week. And tomorrow night is a great opportunity to give it a try. All you have to do is bet a same-game parlay with 3 legs or more, and if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. Seahawks and Rams, and we know the Rams are not very happy right now after their performance. I love the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and it's my official sportsbook app. There's no feeling like nailing a same-game parlay. New to FanDuel, use the promo code JGM to receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older and present Tennessee. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same-game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile and web. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789.
You practice who you practice with, but you just pass Julio and AJ during the course of the week and say, hey, how you guys feeling? What do you think? Or how does that work?
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of conversations. Try to see where those guys are at. So we'll continue to have those conversations throughout this week.
Good feedback?
It's good conversations for sure.
There you go. That was Ryan Tannehill today. So they're going to be able to play on Sunday. Joe Rexrode, who will join us later in the show for Jared versus Joe. Joe Rexrode put out a video on Twitter, at Joe Rexrode, of A.J. Brown, and in it, A.J. moves his feet through the ladder, turns around, and catches the football. And again, that's from that 20 minutes of open practice that the media is allowed to watch. The rest of it, they're not allowed to watch. So they saw it. Joe's got a video of A.J. Brown catching a ball. No Julio Jones at practice today. Now, somebody's got to help me out here. So Julio Jones was tight, right? Like
That's what
why,
we were told.
and he could have gone in the game because he went back against the Colts and grabbed his helmet off the sidelines, right? And was going to go back, and then they said, hey, don't go.
Right.
And then he missed all of last week. And now he's missing the start of this week?
I guess so.
Does that compute? Ian?
I mean, if it's a hamstring injury, it computes. Yeah.
See,
If it's an injury, it makes sense. If it's hamstring tightness, it does not make sense.
here's where the computing comes in, right?
Okay.
When you see a pitcher in baseball throw a pitch and grab his elbow,
It's
and
like,
you don't see that guy for a year, and you all of a sudden it says Tommy John, it's like, okay,
That
makes
checks
sense.
out.
I'm not sitting there saying, wait, why don't they have Radke in the bullpen? It's like, no, the dude's got Tommy John.
Yeah, he
Okay,
has a
fine.
massive cast on his arm.
All right, makes sense to me. When AJ comes out of the game and immediately is helmet off on the sidelines, looking disgusted, in street clothes for the second half, doesn't practice, doesn't play, like I'm like, okay,
He's hurt.
AJ hurt that thing pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like, and again, AJ's got injury issues too that they've got to figure out. But I see that, I'm like, okay, AJ's hurt. When Julio is standing on the sidelines and goes to get his helmet, and then the coach gives us a half-ass answer after the game about, well, I held him out and dig out safeties. And again, I'm not sure I want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but Vrabel does that. And then the next day says Julio was tight and it was my decision to hold him out. Kind of like we were being preventative here. We wanted to make sure Julio was going to be okay. Being preventative. And then we don't see Julio for a week and a half. Now I got a problem because that doesn't add up.
Yeah, I don't know. If Julio never would have grabbed his helmet, never would have been on the sidelines, on his feet, walking around, then I would be
In a
like,
uniform?
In a uniform, then I would say, on the sidelines, I would say, well, he's hurt. There's something going on there that he can't play. I do wonder if there's something here that we don't know.
Like, did he hurt it again?
I don't know. Like that there was an injury issue going into the Indianapolis game. Maybe a trainer saw something or he said something to a trainer that was acting up. He still wanted to play. The trainer said, no, we're going to hold you back to be preventative, and we're going to continue to hold you back until you feel 100%.
But my whole point is, if it's to be preventative, that doesn't take 2 weeks.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I can't say it does or it doesn't.
How can
And also, Julio's 32 years old?
He's old.
That's not old, but in terms of wide receiver years, that's pretty old.
Now, I'll say this, and I actually meant to cut this clip so we could discuss it, and it just eluded me because the Titans embarrassed themselves against the Jets, and then Urban stuck his fingers up a girl's butt.
Urban sticking his finger up a girl's butt does crazy things to your memory.
So, I didn't go back and cut this, but Chris Sanders, who's going to join us in about 10 minutes, Chris Sanders on the pregame show Sunday was not buying anything that we were told last week about Julio.
Chris has played the position.
And Chris played in college with Mike Vrabel.
Right.
So, his knowledge base of this kind of stuff might be a little different than ours.
And also, to be fair, how much do we really buy of whatever we are fed from the Titans?
Well, we talked about this last week. Vrabel has not earned the benefit of the doubt.
No.
all.
He has not earned the right for us not to try and interpret his words as something different than he actually said.
He has not earned. I mean, come on. And so Chris was not buying it at all. So I'm trying to figure out. AJ gets hurt. We immediately know it. We know what it is. And when I saw that, I mean, hamstring to a wide receiver like that, I'm like, thoughts and prayers, because that could be like a 4-week injury. And AJ's back on the field. Julio was tight. And now he's still not back on the field?
Pretty tight.
Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tim, kick us off today. Thank you for calling on the injuries. Go ahead, Tim.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? I know you're a guy that usually tells it like it is, and I was asking my wife, we were listening to the morning show, and they said Dupree makes $16 million a year. I mean, what is his motivation to even come back? They don't lose any money if they sit out. I mean, it's like, still got to hang now. I can't quite make it back yet, I mean, it's just silly to even think they care about coming back. That's all.
So
I got.
I'll ask you this question, Tim. I'll ask you this question. Do you think Tom Brady doesn't need any money to play football?
Yeah, I agree. But
do you not worry about Tom Brady's motivation?
Well, Tom Brady, each individual's got his own personality. Some people.
There you go, Tim. Tim, thank you for your call. That's what you have to figure out when you're doing this free agency and draft process vetting. Is you have to figure out their motivation. I told somebody this yesterday. I told somebody who's pretty big in music, and we were talking about different stuff. And I said, when it comes to talk radio, there's two different kinds of people for me. There is the person who wants to have a radio show, and then there is the person who is a radio guy or gal. But there's a difference. There's the guy who wants to be on the radio to be like, yeah, I've got my own radio show and I can say what and then there's the guy who, when the Titans lose a game to the Jets, it just burns inside of them so much that they have to get out those opinions and they have to just share it with the audience, which is exactly how I feel. And so when you work in radio, you can talk to a radio person pretty quickly and you can figure out like how much this person like loves the game and how much this person is just kind of in it because there's nice perks to being on the radio. And you can tell, very quickly with those things. My guess is in football, it's the exact same too. Like, the guys that are there to get paid and the guys that are there who just freaking love the game. And I'll give you an example. I think Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry absolutely love the game. They love competing. They love succeeding. They love being with their teammates. They love playing well for their teammates. It's not about buying a new car. It's not about posting on Instagram. Ryan Tannehill does not care about that. Taylor Lewan, I don't know. There's a difference there. Text line, 615-737-1025.
Joe texts into the text line and says Titans should not worry about a 31-year-old corner. What they need to worry about is the offensive line, how to get more production out of the wide receivers. You need to back up a little bit, Jared, because you were sold on Julio Jones, Clowney, and Beasley, all of which have not produced like we had hoped. I don't know if you were sold on them. I can vouch at least for Julio for sure.
This
like
Clowney,
you're not sold on them.
Clowney.
I wasn't here, but I know.
I mean,
I know.
Come on. Here's the thing about Beasley. Okay, they gave him $9.5 million, which $9.5 million is not a drop in the bucket, but $9.5 million is less than what you're paying Roger Saffold. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you gave him the treasure trove to everything.
Right.
We called the defensive coordinator of the Falcons, who was there when Beasley was good, and we asked what the deal was, and he said Beasley was a good dude, and he's going to go rush the passer, but he can't do anything else. And since Richard Floyd was the best man in his wedding, I took him at his word. That's fine. I mean, I didn't think that the Titans were done for forever with pass rushing, that they were going to be set to go, but they signed Beasley. I'm like, okay, you can make a $9.5 million mistake if you make one. The problem is I was never down for Clowney because he was never going to be what you want him to be. I was never down for Julio because it was never going to be worth what you paid. Think about nobody else in the league was willing to pay what you paid for Julio. Nobody else in the league. 30 other teams said, no, we're good. And some of those teams had their reasons, like what would the Texans need Julio Jones for? But at the same time, Baltimore could use a wide receiver like that. Cleveland could use a wide receiver like that. Green Bay is trying to get Aaron Rodgers, not to hate them. I'm sure they could use a wide receiver like that. And none of those other teams even thought about it. And that tells me what I need to know. And that's why you overpaid for him.
Especially knowing that Atlanta needed to get rid of him.
Yes.
The fact that there was,
you
and
had
I don't
the
know what
leverage, not
happened.
them.
Yes, and I don't know what happened behind the curtain, but I can only assume that there wasn't much negotiation going on there because Atlanta needed to get rid of him and had a very high price.
Well, when it came out, it was like, hey, Atlanta wants somebody to take all the money and give a high pick. And normally when they come out and say, hey, this is the asking price, normally the asking price ends up being significantly lower, just like the house I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Today.
Ask for a high price and then work from there because why would they start with the middle?
Yes.
Yes, because there's going to be someone willing to pay the high price.
Going to be somebody else, and you go from there. What else we got in the text line?
Craig texts in and says, fans cannot see past their noses. The Titans paid way too much for Julio. Fans were all about picking him up, and now all I can think about is how does this affect the next 3 years for the Titans?
Oh, I mean, I tell you what, if Julio doesn't start playing better, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Especially because you haven't hit on your previous draft picks. So if you don't hit on your previous draft picks, you have to hit on your next draft picks. And if you don't have draft picks to pick, you become the Houston Texans.
Oh, boy.
Without Deshaun Watson.
Well, that's a good thing.
Chris Sanders up next. What does he think about Julio not at practice, AJ at practice, and the Urban Meyer drama this week after the Jets loss? We'll get to Chris next. Join us in partnering with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society's Light the Night. Light the Night brings light to the darkness of cancer through hope, research, and support for patients and families. Through this inspirational nationwide movement, we raise awareness and funding for groundbreaking research and treatment options to eliminate cancer. Nashville's Light the Night will be virtual and take place on November 4th. Learn more at lightthenight.org/TN. Caroline Fenton, I don't think you're familiar with the Zapruder film, are you?
I am not.
Do you even know what that's in reference to?
I don't.
Ian, are you?
Is it like a movie thing?
The Zapruder film?
No, I do not know.
So it was like a guy at the Dallas car rally where JFK got shot.
Uh-huh.
The guy had a camcorder, and this was obviously back in the day.
Right.
And he had a camcorder, and from this camcorder, he had like an alternate shot. It's like if you've seen the video of JFK getting shot.
The one that Darren Ravel tweeted?
I think it's that one.
Yes.
That is the Zapruder film.
Okay.
And so that is like,
Yes.
the history of America, and there's all these conspiracy theories that have come up about the JFK assassination and whatnot. I have received the Zapruder film version of the Julio Jones hamstring injury.
Oh.
So remember one of those Ryan Tannehill runs where he didn't slide? Mm-hmm. So on the play, Julio is, and I have now seen this play, Julio is trying to block two different Colts, and at the end of it, Julio starts limping around, like the same kind of hop that would happen if you hit your foot into the table and you weren't ready for it, and a couple of hops, and he kind of like throws his arms like, damn. And so that does look to be like the hamstring injury that Vrabel said was tight with Julio that then subsequently has kept him out of the game in every practice since then. So we now have, if you go back and look at the play where Tannehill doesn't slide, on that play, Julio kind of pulls up for a second. That having been said, AJ got hurt, ruled out immediately, doesn't practice last week. He's back today. Julio's not. Chris Sanders joins us on the program now. Chris, you've had a lot to say about the Julio Jones situation.
There you go.
Julio not at practice today. What are your thoughts?
Man, we need this guy. I mean, we need this guy because there's no other receiver on this roster that poses a threat that the defense are scared of. We need a guy that's going to take the top off the defense. We need a guy that's going to make that big catch because if you look at last week, when we looked when the Tennessee Titans played against the Jets, if Reynolds just makes that long catch, I think it was a post or a go route, it can actually change the game. So we need a game changer. We need a guy that's going to make the play. We need a guy that's going to make that tough catch. And I just think on this roster right now, the guys that played last week, you just don't see it.
Chris, can you win in the NFL with those guys?
I think you can, but I mean, I just think overall the whole team is just making too many mistakes on offense. You got pass protection, you got pass pro, you got, receivers not going the right depth on routes. All those things add up when, you're playing football. And if you don't correct those mistakes, then everything looks so bad. But yes, I believe that they can win with those guys.
Do you think? What do you make of the fact that AJ had a hamstring, immediately came out of the game, immediately ruled out, put into street clothes? Julio, we've had a whole week of conspiracy theories and reading between the lines, and AJ's back at practice and Julio's not. What do you make of that?
I think, they both have hamstrings, yes, but I think it's the severity of it. You may have Julio Jones that has a higher hamstring pull, and you might have, A.J. Brown has a lower. When I got a lower hamstring, you can come back a little quicker. But when you have a high hamstring pull, those are kind of tough to come back. So I don't know the diagnosis of it. I didn't even see him get hurt. I don't know what he did, but, it must be really bad for him to have a possibility to be out 2 games. So, you just got to keep getting treatment because at the end of the day, when you're playing wide receiver, with these guys being explosive receivers, and you don't have your hamstring, as opposed to being out 2 or 3 games, you hurt that thing, you might be out for the whole season, so you definitely have to be careful.
What did you make of the loss to the Jets?
Oh, man. It was tough to watch because, in my opinion, I thought the Tennessee Titans were the better team. But here's the deal. This is what kind of got me a little bit is because we're dominating the game for the first quarter. And, Zach Wilson is just throwing balls everywhere. But this is what this is what changed the game. I think it was 3rd and 10, and he throws a ball to Corey Davis, a little 10-yard out route. And all of a sudden, Zach Wilson walks back to the huddle, and his body language is like, whoa, I can do this. So I looked at there. I said, uh-oh, here we go. And that's exactly when the game turned around. So I was kind of disappointed, but I think the Tennessee Titans will bounce back.
So I think my bigger issue, though, is it feels like under Vrabel, we always talk about how great it is when no one thinks they can do it, and they do.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's the opposite's true, though, too, when games you're supposed to go win.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. I know the receivers were hurt, and I know the Jets' defensive front, and Vrabel made a big deal about that all last week. I know their front's pretty decent, and once they smelled blood in the water on you, that's just kind of how the NFL works. that first quarter, the Titans could have just crushed the Jets. Could have just crushed them. And this year, I feel like, especially the last 2 weeks against Indianapolis and New York, I feel like they could have put their foot on somebody's neck and stomped them, and they haven't done it. And my question is, do the Titans just not have that mentality, or are they just not good enough to do that?
I just think that they need that killer mentality, and I'm going to give you an illustration of what I'm talking about. Look at the Buffalo Bills. They played the Houston Texans, who I thought were going to be okay. They blew them out 40-0. I mean, when you don't look in the NFL when you see a team get a goose egg 40-0, because why? They know that we're better. We know they got to come in here and they're going to get a spanking. But at the end of the day, if you have that mentality, you have that killer instinct, I don't care who you play. I don't care if it's an 0-5 team, we're going to thump you. If you're going against a team that maybe equal with you, we're going to thump you. It's because they have that killer instinct. With the Tennessee Titans, in my opinion, and I say this respectful, I just think that on defense and offense, I still think that they're trying to find their identity. And when you're trying to find your identity as a ball club on offense, defense, special teams, you're going to struggle until you find that identity. So that's why we're seeing the struggles on offense. We're seeing the struggle at the receiver position. We're seeing the struggle at the offensive line is because guys are being hurt and they're not finding their identity.
Well, how can the Titans not have their identity? This is a veteran team that has been together for years and has had success in this league.
Yeah, but the thing about it is you keep switching different guys in. I mean, if you have those same guys in there,
I mean, the line is pretty much the same as the line that took you to the AFC Championship game.
I mean, yeah, but then look at the receiver core. I mean, Tannehill really doesn't know his receivers. He knows A.J. Brown. Julio's been hurt in camp, and then you got Westbrook. He's been in camp, but he's still unfamiliar with those guys. But it's still a building process. I know it's the fourth game. We still got 13 games left, so you still can try to build the identity. But at the end of the day, it goes back to X and O's and the executing. If the Tennessee Titans don't execute on offense and the defense doesn't save them, now you look at overall that the Tennessee Titans look real bad.
Jacksonville is an absolute mess. Chris Sanders is our guest. They are an absolute mess. If the Titans don't go out and annihilate Jacksonville, how will you feel?
But see, they're in the same position that we're in. They have a mess down there. We have a mess here. It goes back to the team that doesn't make the biggest mess. So the Jacksonville Jaguars have their back against the wall. They're situated with their coach. They're not playing well. 2 weeks ago, they went to Cincinnati. They have a chance to win. They lose by 3 points. So they have a lot of things that are against them. The media saying that this is just a dumpster fire. All these things. Then now you have the Tennessee Titans saying that the offensive line is bad. They don't have receivers. Julio Jones, the Taylor Lewan. You have all these things and all this mess that's going on here. You have two teams that are in disarray. Which team is going to come out victorious? The team that's going to come out victorious is the team that executes and put all that mess behind them and say, you know what? Even though we're 0-4, even though we lost to the Jets, even though we did all these things, I have a job to do and I have to come out there and win.
How concerned are you about the Titans long-term this year?
I mean, I don't know. It's just they're like Jekyll and Hyde. Like 1 week they look like world beaters. The next week they look like they can't beat, the Brentwood Blaze. So I don't know. We just say if the Tennessee Titans lose to the Jaguars, everybody's going to be in disarray. You're going to be upset. You're going to be like crying on the air like you do all the time.
Oh, if they lose to the Jags, somebody might get fired. Like somebody, and it may be, honestly, it may be me. Like when I say somebody might get fired if they lose to the Jags, it might be me.
Yeah, and then everybody's going to be saying, oh, they're terrible, they're not going to win the game. Then they play Buffalo on Monday night, and they blow them out by 20. So I just don't know, because if you look at last year, they wasn't in the same situation, but they kind of were. They were going through disarray. Everybody said they were terrible. Then all of a sudden they played the Buffalo Bills when they said they had no chance. 12 guys had COVID, situation with coaches. All these things were going on. And they beat the brakes off of Buffalo Bills. So I just don't know. I just want to see a consistent team, and that's kind of what Tannehill was talking about when he was doing his interviews this week. He said this, guys. He said we're an inconsistent team. Which are they going to start being consistent? I don't know.
Chris Sanders, former Titans receiver. As always, Chris will be with us on the pregame show on Sunday. Chris, appreciate you.
Appreciate you, my man. You take care.
I got to tell you something. Okay, Thank you, Chris. I got to tell you something. If they lose to Jacksonville and Chris is sitting there saying, you'll be whining and crying and
Yeah.
We have a rule on the show that you never get in trouble about something you haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
If they lose this week to Jacksonville, just given the circumstances, given the season, given the expectations, given all of it, if they lose to Jacksonville, like that may be the moment where it's time to start. And I'm not saying it's time to start talking about it or it's time to start doing something about it, but it's time to start thinking about Vrabel. If they lose this game to Jacksonville, there is no excuse to lose this game to Jacksonville. And I'm the one who picked them to lose to the Jets. I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on things when it comes to the Titans. You don't lose this game.
And
you do not lose this game.
You don't go back-to-back weeks losing to teams that have 0 wins on their schedule so far, especially given the circumstances in Jacksonville. I think that Urban's focus is on everything but this game right now.
Yeah, you don't lose this game.
No.
Given the circumstances, you do not lose it. Do not miss the pregame show. Chris Sanders will be a part of it live from the Corner Pub in Bellevue this Sunday. Pregame show, Jared Stillman, Mark Howard, Chris Sanders, live from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Corner Pub in Bellevue at 8058 Highway 100 prior to the Titans taking on the Jags. The pregame show brought to you by TriStar Moving, Parman Tractor and Equipment, FreedomTireGuys.com, FanDuel, E2 Roofing, Hillside Medical, Social Furniture, Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey as well. Stillman and Company coming up next. Ryan Tannehill talks about the pass protection issues. What he had to say, we'll discuss next. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. So one thing I don't think I took enough advantage of in the 4.5 years that we did this program with Floyd was he would say things, and I go back and listen to old podcasts. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have listened to an old Jared and the GM podcast, and I have heard him say something, and I have heard me cut him off. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and I think, shut up, Jared. I cannot tell you how many times. Like, he's talking.
Let the man speak.
Just shut up. And there are, you look back on it, and gosh, I would never say that to his face. Even though it's a reality that I have recognized now, I would never say it to his face. But the amount of times I listen to myself and I just think, just shut up, Jared. And
I feel like other people have probably said that in their heads as well.
Oh, I knew they were saying it at the time, but now I know. But I think one thing that I never really took for granted was his expertise on football. And it's funny in life, like when you want to be mad at somebody, if they do the smallest thing, then you go right at them. Like if you want to be mad, like think about somebody you work with that you don't like. Although I don't really know how many people Caroline works with, so this might not be a lot. Might be one in particular there. But it's like when that person does something wrong, it's like you go right at Bob again. No, it's Bob. Every time Bob screws it up. We all know that, right?
Yes.
And fans are a lot like that, where there are guys that the fans want to criticize and guys the fans don't want to criticize. And so because I don't have Floyd anymore, I have enough contacts in the NFL that after the pass protection issues, and I thought Tannehill should have gotten the ball out quicker, and I just didn't think it was as simple as this offensive line, because we've said that for years. And then all of a sudden, Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards, and everybody thought this offensive line was good. So I don't, it can't just be this offensive line, which is how I feel like most people felt on Monday. And even you were talking in the text line. Someone said, we've got to fix the offensive line. It's the same group that you ran 2,000 yards with last year. It's the same group that you beat the Patriots and the Ravens in the playoffs with. It's the same group. Now,
doesn't make it okay.
No, and there were concerns, back then going back to Floyd about this offensive line. But I guess what I'm saying is I wanted to get down to it. And I told the story yesterday how I called a couple of coaches, both of whom were offensive coordinators in the NFL, one of whom was a head coach in the NFL. And they both know the Titans at different levels and for different reasons, but they both know the Titans. And I was asking, and I was saying, okay, like in the pass protection, whose fault is it? Is it as simple as blaming the line or the coordinator? Is it as simple as saying, hey, the quarterback's got to be able to read the blitz? Is it? And I told you all yesterday that the offensive coordinators and head coaches that I talked to said, look, it is so not that simple. It is impossible to know because it can be one receiver on the play who doesn't make the adjustment at the line of scrimmage, and because of that, it screws it up for everybody. It can be the running back in pass protection who doesn't see the blitzer, and he all of a sudden sees a linebacker that he thinks he has. Linebacker drops into coverage. The running back thinks, okay, now I can go out into the pattern, and all of a sudden the corner comes on a blitz. He didn't see it. That was what he was supposed to protect. And so there's all these little different things, which, and I said yesterday, to summarize it from talking to two former offensive coordinators in the NFL, was it's kind of everybody's fault when you get sacked 7 times in a game, and it really is. And so Ryan Tannehill was talking today about the protection issues from Sunday, and even though it sounds like a cliche, and it sounds like Ryan Tannehill is just giving you the coach talk, the Ryan Tannehill 101 of nothing, I actually think Ryan was telling you the truth. Here's what he said.
Conversations like, I guess, during the following week when you have 7 sacks, you don't want to point fingers, but you got to get things fixed, and how critical maybe do you evaluate things after a week like that?
Yeah, it's tough. Obviously, it's going to be tough to win a football game whenever we're taking that kind of loss in the pass game. So I think every group had a role in that. There's certainly some plays that I could have helped. There's plays that the O-line could have helped. There's plays that receivers could have helped. So again, kind of like the red zone, everyone plays a part in it, and it all works together. So as a group, just have to do our jobs a little bit better and be able to create those plays.
I know that sounds like coach talk. I think Tannehill's telling you the truth. And again, you can watch the film, which is what every non-football guy says, right? Like, hey, watch the film.
Right.
I watched the film.
Check the tape.
Yeah, like Joe Rexro's telling me watch the tape. Okay, Joe. I'm not even going to say what Floyd was saying. But you can watch the tape, but if you don't know what play's being called, there's no way that you know what happened. And I think Tannehill's telling you the truth. I think on some of these, I think the line didn't block well enough. The first sack, Quesenberry got beat around the edge. Derrick Henry missed his guy in pass protection, sack. I know who to blame there. Now, these sacks like when Bobby Wagner had a clear rush at Tannehill and Nate Davis just stood there with his hand up his rear end, you would think.
Whole lot of hands and rear ends
I know,
recently.
right? You would think that, that's Nate Davis's fault, and I blame Nate Davis too. But it could have been in the communication that the tackle thought he was supposed to get that guy and the guard thought he was supposed to get that. You don't know. And I think Tannehill's telling you the truth when he says, we all screwed up. I think Tannehill did hold on to the ball too long on Sunday. I think Tannehill didn't see the blitzes well enough on Sunday. I think Tannehill took his eyes off the field and started getting scared of the rush on Sunday. I don't think the line blocked particularly well. I think the Jets' defensive line might be better than your offensive line. I don't think the receivers got open. When they did get open, they didn't catch it. I think all of those things played a role into why you gave up 7 sacks on Sunday. And so I know this sounds crazy, but when I listen back to some of those old Jared and the GM podcasts, I see Floyd going down what I call the road of non-committal, which is, Floyd, why do you think I don't know. And those used to drive me insane because I'm like, this is a talk show. Please give me your opinion because I need it. And then you listen back to it, and it's like, no, like he says he doesn't know because he doesn't know.
He doesn't have the game plan in front of him. He doesn't have the plays.
And he explains to you why he doesn't know. And you, talking about me, and I'm just sitting there listening to myself from 3-4 years ago, and I'm like, no, you know what this is. Like, you're not listening. You're listening, just to the radio and worried about, are you entertaining people in the car? But you're not listening to what he's actually saying. And he's telling you, like, he doesn't know, and he's explaining why it's hard to know and how it's hard to do this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking back to it. And I go back to these protection issues, and I will say this. The Titans do not win throwing the ball 40 times a game. The Titans do not win throwing the ball 30 times a game. They're never going to be that team. We had a 5 o'clock segment 2 years ago before the Titans went to Kansas City, or played in Kansas City and won at home. And the question I asked him was, do you think that Ryan Tannehill could out-throw Patrick Mahomes? And he said, absolutely not, and talked about the offensive line being the reason why. And as I listened back to that old podcast, he said, we are not that kind of team. We do not win like that. And I'm sitting there trying to play devil's advocate, just kind of trying to keep the conversation going and get the callers involved. And I'm sitting there saying, well, but what do you think about Tannehill throwing for 280? And he goes, we are not that team. He throws for 400, talking about Mahomes. Mm-hmm. He throws for 400. We are not that team. We don't win like that. And I think back to it, they won the game and Ryan Tannehill threw for 181 yards. Do you know why the Titans win games? Because they stay out of 3rd and 8. Go back to the Baltimore game. Go back to the Patriot game. And every now and then they hit on a big 3rd down. Tannehill hit Ferkser to clinch the game against the Patriots on a big 3rd down. And I believe it was a 3rd down that Tannehill hit Jonnu Smith in the end zone for the first touchdown against the Ravens. But that's not the way they play. That's not the way they win. And so I'm thinking about this, and you go back to that game. And I still think the play on Sunday that totally changed the game was the 3rd and 1 from the shotgun, which why the hell they were in the shotgun on 3rd and 1 inside the red zone when Brewer snaps the ball over Ryan Tannehill's head, which doesn't excuse the snap. Look, guys in a shotgun, you got to snap it to him. And it's not hard to snap the quarterback the ball. But that play totally changes the game. And that's because you're a 3rd and 1 team. That's good. Give it to Derrick Henry. Let Tannehill move around with it. Throw the football. You've got every play in the playbook you can use on that 3rd and 1. And then Brewer snaps the ball over his head. The Titans cannot win like that. They do not win throwing the football. They do not win dropping back 40 times. This offensive line has never been good enough. Listen to me clearly, Joe Rexroad. This offensive line, this group, Jones, Taylor Lewan, Davis, you can throw Saffold in there if you want, Conklin in there if you want, Quessenberry, Kelly. This collection of guys for the last 4 years, they have never been good enough for you to drop back and throw it 40 times. We said that about Saffold all the time early in the 2019 season. He's a great run blocker. He's not a good pass blocker. Conklin's a good run blocker. He's not a good pass blocker. They're just not good. You can run with those guys. We know that. But you can't drop back that much. You can't put yourself in 3rd and 7 because that's not how the Titans win. And so when Tannehill says that about the protection issues, about, it really starts, he's not lying. Now, that brings up the other thing, which is if it's everybody's fault, then it's Todd Downing's fault. And that's the one thing. I'm not ready to jump off the Todd Downing bus, but I know a lot of people are, Ian. I know a lot of people are ready to jump off the Downing bus. But if it's everybody, if everybody's the fault, if it's the line on this one, it's the receivers on that one, it's the quarterback on this one, then it's the coordinator's fault. Because that's his job, is to get everybody working together. So that's what I make of the protection issues. I don't think there's a simple fix to it. I don't think there's one guy you can plug in there and take one guy out and it change everything. I don't think you fire the coordinator over it. But I think we have to be aware of it, that is not how the Titans win, is dropping back and trying to throw the football. And I do think there's something to the fact that the wide receivers can't get open like A.J. Brown and Julio Jones get open against these guys. And if Josh Reynolds catches the deep ball that Tannehill throws, that probably makes the Jets back up for the rest of the football game. But those are the issues going back to Sunday. It's just when I hear Tannehill talk, I'm sure everybody thought, okay, yeah. Here's Ryan Tannehill saying, it's all of our faults and we all have to play better and we all have to, and you're saying, okay, Ryan. But I actually think there's some truth to it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. I don't want to be like Mr. Boring and Mr. Non-Committal and Mr. Whatever, but kind of am when it comes to these issues that, remember how I said, like, when you want to be mad at somebody, you're going to be mad at somebody? That's how I feel everybody pointing the finger at Taylor Lewan is. It's like you want to be mad at Taylor Lewan, so now when the line doesn't block well, you get mad at Taylor Lewan. And I don't think that's really fair.
No, it's not fair, but I think that people are more mad are mad at Taylor Lewan for more than just that thing. It just makes it pretty convenient to blame on Taylor Lewan.
Sure.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, I am still bothered by Tannehill's decision-making. I still am, and we touched on this a little bit yesterday, but I do wonder if something that a former NFL head coach told me, if this is the reality surrounding Ryan Tannehill, plus we'll get back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love those guys, and I promise you that you will love Hiller as well. They do a fantastic job when it comes to taking care of your home, and I know this because I've been using them in my home now for 3 years. I am a member of the Happy Hiller Club and am so thankful to be so. You've noticed all the inventory shortages and empty shelves everywhere. Now there are serious shortages on equipment and products for your home. HVAC systems, tankless water heaters, and generators are going to be extremely limited in 2022. If you need a replacement, call my friends at Hiller today. Don't wait until you are out of options. Hiller has special financing available, so you buy now and you pay nothing until next year. Their work is backed by the Happy You'll Be or Services Free guarantee. Again, I absolutely love them. Those are my guys. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Vols, the Preds, and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
How are things coming along as far as you and Coach Todd, as far as what's up this week, what's not? You guys sorting through the plays and just figuring out what's good for the week.
Yeah, it's been great. Just working with Todd on game plans. Presenting ideas and then making adjustments off of those and trying to find ways to continue to play good football. So, love the way our relationship is progressing and look forward to it continuing to progress.
Ryan Tannehill loves Todd Downing, he says. Have a thought on the offensive coordinator. We'll get to that in just a second. Stillman and company. Ready for the injury report?
The injury novel?
Yes. Aaron Brewer did not practice with a knee. Jayon Brown did not practice with a knee. By the way, may be it for me and Jayon. I may be getting close to being done with Jayon. The guy's always freaking hurt. He is always hurt. And I can't blame him because the guy from the Ravens took a cheap shot on him last year and broke his elbow. But he is always hurt. It's the shoulder, it's the elbow, it's the knee, it's the hamstring, I'm a Jayon Brown fan.
Are you?
But he does not do enough to be missing this many games and to always be hurt with something new. So Jayon's getting to the Kevin Pamphil list with me. That's an honorary spot. Tommy Hudson with an ankle didn't practice. I thought Tommy Hudson broke his ankle. Julio Jones did not practice with a hamstring. Brett Kern did not practice with a groin. Taylor Lewan did not practice with a toe. Racey McMath did not practice with a quad. Nick Westbrook Akina did not practice with a hamstring.
Those dang hamstrings.
Hamstrings. Danico Autry was limited with a hip. Kari Blasingame limited with an ankle. A.J. Brown limited with a hamstring. Bud Dupree limited with a knee. Rashawn Evans limited with a quad. Sharif Finch limited with a concussion. How could be whatever. Chris Jackson limited with a shoulder. Ben Jones limited with a neck. Jeremy McNichols limited with a hamstring. Roger Saffold limited with a concussion. Jeffrey Simmons limited with a back. Caleb Farley full participation. Tier Tart full participation. So maybe Caleb Farley will get back.
There we go. Caleb Farley full participation.
Some good news.
Question. How can you have limited participation when you're in concussion protocol?
So the way I think it works is if you pass like the cognitive test or whatever it is, then they let you go practice out on the field, but you're in non-contact. So you can't be hit. So because of that, you're limited.
Got it.
So that does tell you that those guys, both Sharif Finch and Roger Saffold, are on the progression path to be able to play Sunday at Jacksonville. But there you go. And again, if you lost count at home, I'm sorry, I'm not reading that again.
A lot.
So Tannehill and Downing. I told you yesterday that I talked to a former NFL head coach, NFL offensive coordinator. And every time we talked about the Titans and this coach, and I'll just, this coach told me that Arthur really set Tannehill up for success. Now, this was a coach that, he felt like Arthur really set up Ryan Tannehill. That Ryan Tannehill was, this, with, the pros and the cons of Ryan Tannehill. And that Arthur maximized the pros and minimized the cons. That he put Tannehill in the best position that he's been in the NFL. And the results speak for themselves. We've talked about Tannehill's decision-making. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. The fumbling, the throwing interceptions, which he almost never does. The getting scared of the rush last week against the Jets, holding on to the football too long. And we're sitting there saying, is it everybody else's fault? Is it Tannehill's fault? And I can't get out of my head. And I'm not anti-Downing, but I cannot get out of my head what that coach told me, that Arthur set Tannehill up for the success that Tannehill's had, and wondering if that at least has to partially be true. And that the change in offensive coordinator, the drop-off between the two, is kind of maybe accentuating some of the mistakes Tannehill has made, because Tannehill, at his best, is the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, bar none. And now, Tannehill's not very good in the red zone. Tannehill's making decisions that we don't love, and I just keep running it back to that coach saying to me, Arthur. Because I was talking to him about Mariota and what the Titans were like then, and the coach was telling me, Marcus was a backup. And everybody loves Marcus. I love Marcus. But Marcus was a backup. And then Tannehill gets in there, and Arthur puts in a system for Tannehill that maximizes his potential, and that's how Tannehill became what Tannehill became. And I was like saying, and then Tannehill, Dave's like, yeah, and don't forget about Arthur. Don't forget about Arthur, the coach kept saying. And so now that we've got, and this was, a little bit back, and then I talked to the coach again the other day, this has me feeling like Downing's got to step it up. And I'm a Downing guy, but he's got to start maximizing Ryan Tannehill because we've seen Ryan Tannehill be maximized before, and he's seen Ryan Tannehill be maximized being the tight ends coach when Tannehill was there with Arthur Smith as the coordinator. But are you worried that the drop-off from Arthur to Downing has affected Tannehill?
Well, I think it very much so has affected Tannehill because you look at Tannehill's production so far this season compared to last season, and there's a very obvious difference, and the biggest thing that has changed, at least in Tannehill's life, is the change in offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say,
you can say
he had A.J. Brown last year who's been productive so far this season. Whether he's dropping the ball or getting hurt, A.J. has not really been productive.
But yes, I would say changes in A.J. Brown's production, adding Julio Jones. But I mean, the biggest thing is the change in offensive coordinator. So yes, I can say that you maybe not 100% can tie it to a change in offensive coordinator, but I do think that is a contributing factor. Am I worried? Not yet. Because I do think that that's the job of an offensive coordinator is to tailor your offensive scheme to your quarterback's strengths and to understand and learn your quarterback and figure out the situations where he works best. That's Todd Downing's job. So am I concerned that he hasn't done that yet? I am. Am I worried for the future? I don't think yet. If we continue to see this as a trend where there is no improvement in the efficiency of this offense, where we don't see Ryan Tannehill starting to mirror the Tannehill of 2020 or 2019 and rather looks like a Miami Tannehill, then yes, I'm going to be concerned. But I do think that there is a small cause for concern, but I'm just not quite there yet.
Here you go. Here's Tannehill in his career in the NFL. And this is the touchdown to interception percent. So I believe this means how many touchdowns per interception. 2.5, 4.1, 4.6, 4.1, 4.9, and 6.2. Then he leaves Miami. His last year in Miami, 17-9.
Mm-hmm.
7.7 with the Titans. 6.9 with the Titans. 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in 19. 33-7 in 2020.
Dang.
5-3. 3.3 in 2021.
There is one common thread.
In
those good years.
Is that a Todd Downing stat? Now, again, A.J. has not been A.J. this year, and Julio has played in, half the games. So, he doesn't have Jonnu Smith. He has no starting tight end.
Has the same offensive line.
Same offensive line, same running back. And we know that there's nothing about Downing that is holding Derrick Henry back.
Right.
Because if we're going to sit there and knock Tannehill's efficiency with the football on Downing, then we also have to say Todd Downing's figured out a way to get Derrick Henry involved in the passing game, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But is that a stat that if it doesn't improve? Again, Tannehill threw 7 interceptions all of last year. He's got 3 so far this year. And he's got a couple more that could have been picked. Not to say that we should hold those against him because they didn't get picked. But I look at it and I'm like, you know what? I think that is the stat that Todd Downing right now has to own. And I keep telling you, this former coach told me, Arthur, anytime I brought up Tannehill, but Arthur did a great job with him, was the thing that I kept being told. So that's just going to live in the back of my mind. Let's go to your phone. 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Igor is going to kick us off here this hour. Thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead, Igor.
Thanks, Jared, for taking my call. So I have a different way of putting what you're discussing. It's not just who's to blame or the stats or the numbers of Tannehill. I think it all comes down to how creative is the offense. And by creative, I don't mean trick plays or Hail Marys or flea flickers. I'm talking about throwing a screen on first down instead of handing it off to Derek every single first down. And I'm not saying anything, there's nothing wrong with handing it off to Derek. Obviously the production's there. I'm just saying when the viewers know what's coming, then the defense knows what's coming. When I'm watching the game and I have no idea what they're about to call, that's when the Titans win. Their winning style is being creative and unpredictable. And I don't mean crazy and anything irrational. I just mean switching it up. Maybe doing instead of just a traditional handoff in the I formation, maybe you do a sweep with Derek, or maybe you throw it to Derek on a short 1-yarder and see if he breaks the tackle. All I'm saying is Todd Downing's job is not only to maximize the talent that he has on the roster, but to be creative in doing so that we're not so predictable.
Yep, thank you for your call. I am not one to sit there and think that the Titans are overly predictable. I mean, look, if you're 3rd and 9, it's going to be predictable what you're going to do. I do, though, hear people say that about Downing, that he is too predictable. And I just, like, I have a hard time getting there, that it's predictable. I mean, look, when they throw an incomplete pass on 1st down and they hand off to Derek on 2nd down, that does feel predictable.
Yes.
But you want them to go a whole like if they do that, like if they, throw the ball incomplete, throw the ball incomplete, and then now it's 3rd and 10 and Tannehill gets sacked, you're going to say, how could they not give the ball to Derrick Henry on that series?
Well, I think there's a difference between not being predictable and making dumb play calls. Because if you throw the ball incomplete, and try to throw the ball 3rd time on 3rd down, that's just not very good play calling.
Is it?
To try and throw the ball 3 different times, 3 different downs, 3 and out?
Well, so then what do you want them to do?
I don't know. That's not my job. But, I mean, to the caller's point.
Well, like, you got a 50-50 chance, though. Like, when you're watching the game and you're sitting there and you're like, I think they're going to run on this play, you have a 50-50 chance of being right.
Yes. But when it's, he's going to pass after Derrick Henry, he's going to go up the middle for a gain of 2 or 3 yards. I think it's that
Do you know how many times they've given the ball to Derrick Henry and it looks like he's going to go 2 or 3 yards and he gets 9?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what makes Derrick Henry so good.
How many times Sunday against the Jets did you feel like on any of those runs that he was about to pop it for a touchdown?
Like 4 or 5.
And there were like some 9-yard gains. Now, there were those big gains that it looked like he was about to go.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I watch him get the ball, and I am in favor of giving him the ball as much as possible. Every time he gets the ball and I see him go and he gets stopped for like a gain of 2, I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. They're not all going to be 55-yarders. But if you can stay in down and distance to where you can give him the football, one of them might be. And I don't know how many times, once he gets going, and I think we've all seen this enough, that where Derek gets the ball and he crosses the line and he gets past that first level of defenders, and now it's like you see the DBs starting to come and you're like, oh, go, go, go. Because you know if he gets past that one, like he's gone. And I thought a couple of times on Sunday, he got past those, like that second level of linebackers, and I'm like, oh, baby, he's gone. And then somebody trips him up some way, somehow. Or Roger Saffold, Nate Davis won't get out the way, and all of a sudden Derrick Henry gets tackled because there's too many big bodies around there. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is they throw an incomplete pass on 1st down. And you're like, okay, now they're going to give the ball to Derek for 2 yards off the left side or up the middle or whatever. They give the ball to Derek, he gets 3 yards, and you're like, that's predictable play calling. But just as likely as Derek is to get 2 or 3, Derek's likely to get 8 or 9, or Derek's likely to get 25, or Derek's likely to get 60. And so it's like your option is, if you say, well, it's too predictable, like to me, this is where an offensive coordinator can't win. Because unless they score a touchdown on every play, the offensive coordinator is going to get blamed one way or another. Because you're going to say, well, that's predictable. Okay, so you know what's not predictable?
I don't think that's the case for every offensive coordinator.
Do you know what's not predictable? Bringing Jeremy McNichols in the game on 1st and 10 and running the option with him. But I wouldn't do it.
But I don't think that that's the case for every offensive coordinator. I don't think that every NFL fan base is saying, oh, my offensive coordinator, their play calling is so predictable. Now, to be fair, not every NFL franchise has a Derrick Henry that's able to run it up the middle for a potential gain of 8, 9, 10 yards. But I'm just saying there have been several instances when I thought, I know exactly what is coming. So a defensive coordinator, it knows exactly what's coming as well.
So I would argue that the Titans have been that way for 5 years. Like that personnel groupings tell you what the Titans are going to do every time.
But does that make it okay?
Everybody loved Arthur, and that's exactly what they did with Arthur. When Ferkser, Dion Lewis, and Adam Humphries run into the game, and Derrick Henry, Kari Blasingame, and Michael Pruitt run out, you're telling the defense what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. It is a predictable play from that standpoint. And that's the exact same thing they're doing here. See, here's what got me on play calling. The one thing that I'll get on Downing about, and I don't know how much of the pass protection is Downing's fault. I think there certainly is some of that's his. The 3rd and 4 when you know you're going for it on 4th and 4. To me, that's now 2nd and 4. 2nd and 4 is a run down. And even if you're not running, Derrick Henry has to be in the game. Now, I think the Titans got worried about Derrick Henry's pass protection, and I understand why. And the pass protection still is not good. No matter how you want to slice it, it's much better than it was, but it's still not good. And so, and there's a lot. I was talking to one of those offensive coordinators I was talking to the other day, talking about how complex being a running back who's got a pass pro is, and it's hard. When they took Derrick out of the game on 3rd and 4, knowing you're going for it on 4th and 4, that was the one that I'm like, okay, that's stupid. Because now you're telling the defense exactly what you're going to do. That was the one I did. But to look at it, I can't tell you how many times over the last 20 years I've watched a game with the Titans and thought, don't run the ball, don't run the ball, don't run the ball. They run the ball game 9. Or I've been like, don't throw it, give it to Derrick, give it to Derrick, give it to Derrick. They throw over the top to Jonnu Smith, they get 25 yards. Like, I've just seen that enough that it's just me. You may be right. It may be predictable. I just don't think it's that predictable. I just think that the Titans are very limited in their options of what to do. Do you want to throw the ball to Cam Batson, or do you want to run the ball with Derrick Henry?
I mean, stats would tell you go ahead and run the ball with Derrick Henry.
And what did the Titans do when they needed a touchdown on Sunday?
Gave the ball to Derrick Henry.
They faked it to Derrick Henry and they threw it to Cam Batson. They moved the entire defense to the right. And I thought Derrick was getting the ball too.
Yeah.
And they gave it to Cam Batson.
Well, I'm not saying that every single down is predictable, but I am saying that I've seen it before, it's frustrating because I knew that that's exactly what was going to happen.
Ian, do you think the play calling is predictable?
I have not been a huge fan of the first down play calling. I feel like he's a little off. You know, he's zigging when he should be zagging at times. And there's times where he should be running it. And I just don't think he's found the right balance on first down right now. I do have an issue with that.
Let's get to your phone, 615-737-1025. We'll do that coming up next. Stillman & Company right here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Car shopping is some serious and stressful business, and you do not want to be overwhelmed. That's why my friends at Edmunds are here to help. They have been taking the stress out of car shopping for over 50 years. Edmunds editors drive over 500,000 miles every year, testing thousands of hours on hundreds of new vehicles. They review almost every car on the market, and they rank the best ones in each category so you can narrow your search and compare options side by side to find the vehicle for you. When you're ready, Edmunds makes it easy to find options in your area with accurate price estimates. They have helpful filters so you can search by color, model, special features, engine type, drivetrain, price, distance, and more. They even show you dealerships that are offering home delivery, because who doesn't like that? Edmunds is here to guide you to your perfect vehicle. Visit Edmunds.com to search their best car rankings and search for vehicles near you. That's Edmunds, EDMUNDS.com. For cars, there's Edmunds.
to maybe mix in some downfield shots in the offense, and what are the most important elements you guys need in order to kind of implement that into the offense?
Yeah, I mean, explosives are huge. Just time it up. Having the right call on when you get the right defense. I think that's just luck of the draw sometimes. And we've had some good opportunities and haven't been able to make the plays. So it all, like I keep saying, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it all works together, right? We need a little bit of extra time when we're trying to push the ball down the field. We need good pocket movement and awareness by me and a good ball location. And then we need receivers to be able to get open and make a play on the football.
That was Ryan Tannehill today, and he's not wrong. And in the case of Josh Reynolds, it'd be nice if he would have caught it on Sunday. Do you want a pair of tickets to see Daughtry at the Ryman Auditorium on November 3rd? Head over to YouTube and subscribe to 1025 The Game's YouTube page. You'll enter for your chance to see Daughtry. Once you subscribe, email us at promotions@cromwellmedia.com with your YouTube handle. One winner will be chosen on Monday, October 11th. Let's go to your phones. Text line, Caroline Fenton, on that in the discussion about Todd Downing and whether or not he's too predictable.
Cody texts in and says, so is it not possible for Ryan Tannehill and Todd Downing to watch film from when Arthur Smith called plays and Ryan can express what he liked about that offense?
So I would say this. Do you think you could take a radio host, like pick a random, let's use Robbie Stanley.
Okay.
And we were to say, okay, I want you to listen to every Stillman and Company that Jared does, and I want you to do it exactly like Jared. Do you think he could do that?
Well, I'm not going to criticize Robbie's ability as a radio host because he's a great radio host.
But I'm saying, could he do what I do?
No, because he's not you.
And
he has his own style.
And I don't think I could do like what Joe does of sitting there and couching every opinion that I've ever had by if, so that then when it doesn't work out, I could be like, well, I said if at the time that it works out that it would be a good, and I can't do that. And so that's what the texter is asking is, can't he just emulate Arthur now that Arthur's not here? And I just don't think with anything in life you can do that. It's like I can't stand this about Matt Nagy because I think it's so lame. But at the bottom of his little play sheet it says be you? That's what that means. It's like you can't try to call plays like you're somebody else. You can't listen to what the fans are telling you. You got to be yourself. And so I do think that it would be nice if there were a lot of things that he learned from Arthur. But I don't think this idea of, well, you saw Arthur do it, now go do it like Arthur. That'd be like telling Jarrett Stidham, hey, you saw Brady do it for a year, go do it like Tom. That's not that easy.
But to the texter's point, can they sit down and watch film and talk about what Ryan Tannehill liked about that offense? Sure. But is it necessarily going to elicit the same results? Not necessarily.
That should happen 8 months ago.
Yes.
When
Todd Downing was hired as the offensive coordinator.
When that should have happened.
And they may have done that, and it just hasn't come to fruition.
But see, here's what I would love to know, and this would be a great question to ask Floyd, which is, it had to be different in New England when O'Brien left and McDaniels came back. Brady's had to work with Charlie Weiss. He's had to work with McDaniels. He's had to work with O'Brien. He's had to work with other coordinators. Now he's working with Arians and Leftwich. And I guarantee you, I guarantee you Byron Leftwich watched every Patriot game. And he's not Josh McDaniels. And that's something that I think you have to get over. What's next?
Slick texts in and says, you keep saying same offensive line, but no Dennis Kelly or Jack Conklin from 2019 is a lot bigger than you're making it out to be.
Is it? Because last year they didn't have Taylor Lewan. They had David Quesenberry. They were 11-5. They had the second-ranked offense or whatever in the NFL. So I hear you. But Conklin was in and out of the lineup. Kelly played a lot, but Quesenberry was a part of the offensive line last year. Now, I told you all yesterday, and if you missed it, one thing that a former NFL head coach told me is this idea that you can take a left guard and flip him to right guard is just not always the case in the NFL. And Quesenberry last year was effective as a left tackle, and they flipped him over to right tackle. And I think that's what that ex-coach was trying to allude to me without saying was, the left guard, right guard, so that way it's not easily to make the connection of left tackle to right tackle. But I'm sure, you've had a drop-off at the right tackle position, there's no doubt, but not so much so that, Derrick Henry's still on pace for 2,000 yards. So you heard the podcast from 2 years ago where Floyd was like, oh, our line can't protect.
Right.
And that was the same offensive line minus Jack Conklin put in David Questenberry. Same line.
Joe texts in and says, why is it that professional football players who play for the Titans seem to always have fundamental problems? Whether it's catching, blocking, passing, it just seems the coaching is not as strong as the roster.
See, I think that's part of this being the NFL. That this is the NFL, and every team feels that way. That isn't one of the best teams. And the best teams have the best quarterbacks, and Tannehill's not that. Like, I hate to say that that's that simple, but like Kansas City has a lot of fundamental issues. But when you got a quarterback that can run around and uncork a rocket that then lands 90 yards into the arms of a receiver who's faster than every other DB in the league,
it covers up any fundamental issues you may have.
Yes. Until you play a great defense and you don't have your offensive line, and then he can't do all that running around. I mean, I think that with certain teams, like I think Tom Brady holds his team accountable to a point that there's so few mistakes. I'll be honest. I thought Brady on Sunday against the Patriots was the tightest I have seen Tom Brady, and I can't remember. I think Tom Brady plays looser in a Super Bowl than he played on Sunday. Like, I think that game meant so much to Brady.
I think it meant more to him than maybe a Super Bowl.
And that's
saying
and
something.
I think Brady, that means a lot.
It was the Brady Bowl.
But ultimately, I think it is. I mean, I think the Titans coaching staff has issues. You know me. But at the same time,
I think a lot of coaching staffs have issues.
I
Not
think
to
that's
make
the
excuses
point.
for the Titans.
Well,
but
like when the texter says, why is it that the Titans are always the ones that are fundamental? Go watch the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, and I think that's the same thing if you're a fan of a team. You may say, oh, because I saw another texter text in and say, why is it that the Titans play teams who always seem to figure out their issues against the Titans? Like, I think it's easy to say that when it happens a couple times, and it's almost like, oh, it's always the Titans. And when it happens, it's always the Titans. You hear that a lot from fans, and I think that it's just kind of like reiterating what you think whenever it happens, even though it's not necessarily true, because I don't think the Seahawks figured out their issues against the Titans. The Colts surely didn't figure out their issues against the Titans.
Well, the Colts are hurt. That team was barely an NFL team that you played and didn't dominate like you should have.
Right.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll hit the headlines with Caroline, and we'll do that coming up next. Hey, play silly underdog picks. Pick 3 college football or pro football underdog teams you think will win this week. For a chance to win, go to thegamenashville.com for more details and to play. Silly underdog picks is brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Stillman and Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, we got more Urban to get into in the next hour. Urban had his first previewing the Titans press conference.
We're not allowed Titans talk.
I'm not sure there was a lot of talking about the Titans in there. By the way, I saw this on Twitter, and did you watch baseball last night?
I did.
I enjoyed it last night. It was fun.
It was fun.
I wish they'd hurried up a little bit, but I saw that Christopher Mad Dog Russo apparently just went bananas.
Oh, you texted me this.
No, I told you what Adam Shine said.
Okay, so this is different.
Apparently, Mad Dog went nuts about A-Rod calling the game. A-Rod is so bad.
A-Rod said, Garrett Cole, it's looking up because sophomore season's always easier. Garrett Cole's in his sophomore season. Next year will be Garrett Cole's third year with the Yankees. That's embarrassing.
Well, and you know what the thing with him is.
With A-Rod?
No, with Garrett Cole.
What?
He doesn't have the sticky stuff anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, he made $300 million off the sticky stuff.
He has been the poster child for Spider Tack.
I am convinced with A-Rod that he literally only knows what he was supposed to do. That the only things he knows in baseball that he can talk about during a broadcast are what he was supposed to do. And he doesn't really know the game. He just knows what he was told to do as an elite player. Hey, A-Rod, when the ball's hit to you and there's a man on first, throw to second. That's what he knows.
I'm not going to say what A-Rod knows and doesn't know about baseball.
A-Rod's terrible.
Because it's probably a whole heck of a lot more than I know.
It might not be.
Maybe not.
It might not be. A-Rod is terrible.
I will say, A-Rod used my computer one time for a Zoom call. Ever since he used it, it was acting so weird. It would my AirPods wouldn't connect to it. The clock didn't work. All my programs took so much longer to load. So I do have to say that I think A-Rod completely just messed up my computer.
Time for headlines with Caroline.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Headlines with Caroline presented by Firo Tequila, the world's spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave.
The Cowboys have released linebacker Jalen Smith, which is a little bit confusing because he has yet to miss a game in his career. And the Cowboys are on the hook for his full $7.2 million base salary this season. Mike McCarthy didn't say specifically one reason why they decided to let go of Jalen Smith. He said there was multiple factors that went into the move and that it was the best time to make this decision. So by releasing him now, they are off the hook for his $9.2 million base salary in 2022. That was guaranteed only for injury, but he's now on the market.
Yeah, it sounds like a bunch of bullcrap from Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like
multiple factors. I don't know what the issue was.
Now, one of the things they do have is they have Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons has kind of moved down since DeMarcus Lawrence broke his foot, and so it sounds like there's an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something going on. But, I mean, there haven't been any legal things come out about Jalen Smith. It's not an injury thing, but I do wonder if there's some sort of locker room issue going on.
Locker room issue,
which we won't learn.
Issue,
yeah.
Something like
a coaching relationship. I don't know what.
But
it is.
I can't tell you how many people yesterday. Titans need Jalen Smith.
I can't tell you how many texts we've gotten in the text line both yesterday and today about
getting Jalen Smith. He's an inside linebacker.
Smith.
They have 4 of those.
I don't know if this is. It's not exclusive to Titans fans, but I just feel like any player that gets released that has some sort of big name, everyone is like, let's get him.
Everyone.
Let's get him.
Unless it's a quarterback and you have a quarterback. That's the only time that it's
But
not.
Even when Aaron Rodgers' future with the Packers was kind of up in the air, we heard some rumblings about Aaron Rodgers coming to Nashville.
What's next?
Matt Nagy announced that they are committing to Justin Fields as their starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Now, Matt Nagy previously said that Andy Dalton would regain the job whenever Andy Dalton would come back from injury. He missed 2 games so far due to a knee injury, but they are committing to Justin Fields the rest of the season. So the people of Chicago and all Bears fans have finally gotten their wish. Justin Fields has had 2 starts so far in this season, most recently against the Lions last week in their 24-14 win.
Sounds kind of like when Jeff Fisher didn't want to start Vince Young, and Bud Adams said, if y'all don't start Vince Young, you're fired. And
okay, all right, we'll start him then.
Vince Young started starting?
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like that.
Yeah.
I don't expect much from Fields. I mean, young quarterback. You don't win with young quarterbacks. I thought the Wilson kid looked awesome on Sunday. I think he's got a ton of talent for the Jets. Not something the Jets.
But he's also thrown 4 interceptions in one game.
But, I mean, the idea of them winning more than 3 or 4 games this year to me is 0.
I don't know what their schedule looks like for the rest of the year, so I don't know.
Like maybe they could be the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Like maybe they could be, the.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that Justin Fields could have a bright future in Chicago, but like what we've seen from him so far hasn't been all that extraordinary.
No, they'll probably be what, 7-10.
Yeah.
6-11.
How many games
Nagy
have
and
they won
Pace
so
get
far?
fired at the end of the year.
I don't think so.
Oh, I think they both get fired at the end of the year.
I don't know.
Oh, they definitely get fired.
Do you think that Matt Nagy got the same ultimatum? You're starting Justin Fields or you're fired?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
What's
fair.
next?
The Red Sox beat the Yankees last night. We
did.
saw that. Won the AL wildcard game last night 6-2. Garrett Cole only lasting 2 innings. So I think last night's game has said a lot more about the Yankees and the future of the Yankees than the Red Sox.
I do not follow the Yankees. I do not cover the Yankees. I barely even watch the Yankees. I was watching that game last night, and I'm like, they need to fire Aaron Boone. Like, I really – and you know what really got me?
What?
Is I've told this story like a month. And I read when I was in Florida this summer, I was just reading up a New York Daily News article, New York Post article. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about David Cone, who does the broadcast, former pitcher, great pitcher with the Yankees. And Cone was in the running to be the pitching coach when they hired Boone to be the manager. And they ended up hiring Matt Blake. And the reason that Brian Cashman, the general manager of the Yankees, gave David Cone was, well, Matt Blake maybe never played before, but he knows how to use the cameras that show the spin on the baseball, and we need that more so than David Cone. And David Cone said that he told Brian Cashman, who do you want going out in the 7th inning of a playoff game to talk to Garrett Cole, me or Matt Blake? And last night when I saw Matt Blake walk out to the mound, I thought,
that's all.
Where's Coney? I'm like, where's Coney? Because Coney was a badass when it came to October. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, where's David Cone? So I think they need to fire Boone. I think the Yankees need to fire a bunch of people. But again, I don't really know them. I don't really follow them. That's just my uneducated opinion.
They haven't won a World Series since 2009. Which
when are they going to have the curse of the what for them? Because it's been, 11 years now?
It's been 12 years. Last World Series was 2009.
Like there are young men in New York getting bar mitzvahed who do not remember
that is
the Yankees winning the World
Series.
Series.
Darn shame.
Think
and they
about
probably have Yankees-themed bar mitzvahs.
Think about that.
And they've never even seen them hoist a World Series trophy.
I mean, think about that.
I mean, that is just
Although
awful.
you got me over here who's like, my dad's 70 now. Can we just get one Titan Super Bowl before, can we just get one Titan Super Bowl?
Was your bar mitzvah Titans themed?
No, but the Sunday afterwards, we went to a Titans game.
Oh, fun.
So
that is nice.
Those are Headlines with Caroline. Headlines with Caroline presented by Firo Tequila, the world's spiciest infused tequila on the market. The world belongs to the brave. Coming up next, Urban Meyer back at the podium previewing. I put that in little quotations. Previewing the Titans. Another embarrassment for the slimy ball coach. That's next. First, though, Caroline wants to tell you about BetUS.
I want to tell you about my favorite sports book, and that is BetUS. We've got a big baseball game tonight. I've already put some money on it, so you can do the same thing with BetUS. It is America's favorite sports book and has been for over 25 years. That is exactly why I endorse them. They've been around a long time, so you know they have integrity. You know they have longevity. And I know for a fact whenever you win on BetUS, you know that you are going to get paid. Plus, they offer everything. They have live bets, MMA, golf, horses, esports, baseball, postseason bets, any football bets that you want to put down. You name it, they've got it. So call them today. They will walk you through setting up an account. It is super easy. I've done it. All you have to do is call 1-800-79-BET-US, 1-800-79-BET-US. Nobody in the industry gives bigger bonuses than BetUS. You can get up to 200% bonus. So if you join now, mention GAME, you can get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. Just use code GAME, GAME, on your first deposit at BetUS.com.
Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025. The Game. We are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry, Jason Fitz. In 25 minutes, ESPN Radio. Joe Rexroad, Jared versus Joe. Do not miss it, 5 o'clock. So get excited about all that. Urban Meyer was back up at the media podium today, and what an eventful couple of days it has been for old Urban.
It has been a roller coaster for Urban. I mean,
it really hasn't, though, because a roller coaster implies that it goes up. And I don't think at any point it's gone up. I mean,
it's like one of those roller coasters where it just goes down.
I know one thing that went up, and that's it with Urban and everything else.
All right.
Just saying. So, if you don't know the full Urban story, and I feel like every time we talk the Urban story, we have to reset it because I feel like sometimes people missed like a chunk, but each chunk is important.
They missed a whole of it?
They missed the whole of it. So, Urban loses on Thursday night by a field goal. Mm-hmm. Apparently, to every football person in the world, the fact that Urban did not fly back on the team plane with the team is like next level to every football person. It's like, you didn't fly back with the team? Like, of all the travesties, like the running around on the wife, the fingers in the butt, the bull crap responses.
That's all just supplemental.
It's you didn't fly back with the team? Oh, my God. So that's the first thing. So they lose. They're 0-4. They don't fly back with the team. Then the video comes out Saturday of him at the bar with the young girl. Then he apologizes, said that he got drug out on the dance floor. He didn't mean it, all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine, whatever. Then the video comes out of him sticking the fingers on the jean line of the hemming of the rear end, right up in there, getting on in.
All up in there.
Which you would tell like a defensive lineman, like get up in there. Yep. So that happened. Urban, then the Jags come out yesterday and say they're not going to fire Urban, but that's pretty much it. Then it gets reported that the players are laughing at Urban and that they have no respect for Urban.
Well, I also wondered, too, how much respect did they have for Urban before this
So
incident?
that's where the lack of respect comes from. It's not this.
Yes.
It's everything else.
Yes.
And today, and this will explain to you why I think that nobody really has any respect for Urban. Because I was watching NFL Network this morning, and Ian Rappaport was on TV, and he was saying, yep, this just in, Urban Meyer has talked to the team today, and he was very remorseful about how he felt, and the Jaguar players listened and heard him out, and they took it forward, and they went forward with it, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, it is 7:13 in the morning. How does Ian Rappaport know what Urban Meyer said to the team? You think that some player took out his phone, called his agent, said, hey, tell Ian Rappaport that Urban sat us down and said this?
Probably not.
I'm going to guess Urban let old Ian Rappaport know, or whoever the PR guy for the Jaguars is, and I forget who it is. He's a really, really nice guy.
Oh, that's got to be a tough job right now.
I forget the guy's name. He is so nice, though. He's a very nice guy.
Oh.
The PR director for the Jags.
Uh-huh.
Say they called old Ian and said, hey, Ian, because it was embarrassing yesterday. The player said he didn't even talk to us as a team. He went around to each positional group, and he talked to them. He didn't talk to us. And so now...
And he said that in his press conference today. I'll go to the running backs, and I'll go to the wide receivers. He says he doesn't think that he can get much done in a team meeting.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I would say this. So, and we've got about the first 4 minutes of Urban's press conference. We'll play it in just a second. Mm-hmm. If I owned the Jags, I'd fire Urban. And here's why I'd fire Urban. Not because we're 0-4, though that's a part of it. Not because he was running around on his wife, though that's a part of it. Not because fingers in the butt is fingers in the butt, and it's not acceptable for the coach to be doing fingers in the butt in public. Like, come on now. Not because of that. Not because he didn't fly home with the team, but because all of it. Because you can't coach in this league. If you do something, the way that the football people in the NFL are talking about how egregious it is that Urban wouldn't fly home with the team tells me all I need to know. Remember when he took the job And people said, Steve Spurrier had to learn that you can't coach like you did in college. And that's the hard part for a lot of these guys. And it's like, do these people live under a rock? Like when John Beilein, a hands-on a-hole, leaves the Michigan Wolverines.
Someone else who was hands-on a-holes.
Yeah, that's true too. Leaves the Michigan Wolverines and goes to the NBA and is done within half a season. Did John Beilein not know that the NBA is a little different? That these guys make more money in a year than you made the entire 15 years you coached at Michigan? Like, do they not know this? Like when they go into it? Urban today, and I saw the headline, Urban today decided not to fly back with the team. Not because he had a reason to be in Ohio, but he just needed to get out of Dodge for a little bit. This is the NFL. If I owned that team, I would be thinking, you wanted to take a vacation 4 games into the season? You are the coach. Like, you're the coach. I would expect you to be in the office with the tape on. And I would expect you to be working to make us a better team. And yet, here's Urban. He's doing things the Urban way. And you can't do that in the NFL. Do you think Bill Belichick would ever take a vacation in the middle of the season? Absolutely not. And if he did, it'd be the bye week, and I don't even think he does that. Like, what is going on here? It's a disgrace. And then Urban went up to the podium today to preview the Titans.
Not a whole lot of Titan talk.
Here's what Urban had to say today.
It's a situation I'm personally dealing with, and I had at least 3 or 4 conversations with Shad. Messages loud and clear, and I agree with. Also met with the team on Monday individually, and then today had a very pointed conversation with them, owning a stupid mistake that I made. And that a job of a coach is to, number 1, health and safety of a player. Number 2 is motivate them and bring out the greatness in them. And number 3 is give them everything possible to be successful and get a great locker room. And then get the heck out of the way. And I apologize for distraction with a huge week coming up, especially after they made so much improvement from week 1 to week 4. So that was the conversation.
Why meet individually with the players on Monday instead of one giant team meeting? You wait till today for that.
I wanted to get in their space and have a good relationship with this whole team. And I'm not a big team meeting guy. I'm more of I do a lot of it that way, where I'll go to the running backs where there's a group of 4, and I'll team meetings are very it's just a big environment. In my opinion, you don't get much done in a team meeting. You get a lot done when you're in personal space with people. I've always done that.
Urban, have you heard from the league office?
No.
Have you talked to, you haven't talked to Goodell? And then were you fined, as part of the reprimand, were you fined by shotgun?
No.
Coach, did you ask permission or was granted approval to not fly back with the team?
I'm sorry?
Did you ask, like shot, was it okay for you not to fly back with the team?
Yeah, well, I discussed it with Trent way in advance.
What do you think the players' reaction to you not going back in? I mean, you stood at that podium in Cincinnati and you said you had a hard-working team. Do you think that taking back on that consideration, that might not have been a good thing to do, to not fly back?
I thought at the time, now that I maybe thought it through, but I thought at the time this is a chance for everybody to clear their head, including myself, with my family located, where we were, to go spend a day or 2 with them and then get back, because I knew I wanted them to get out of Dodge too and clear their heads.
Urban, oh God! Oh God! I said this yesterday. This is all bad for the Titans because it means that Urban's departure from Jacksonville is going to happen a lot sooner than would be beneficial to all of us. But oh my God, I cringed listening to that, and I'd already heard it.
Well, and he also said, I had cleared not flying home with the team a while ago. Oh. I wanted to stay back with my family because this is where my family lives, and I cleared that a while ago. And when the reporter asked him a question, did you call, shout about possibly flying home with the team or not flying home
See
with
who
the
threw
team.
under the bus?
And he said, "Wait, what?" Like he was like, "Okay, shoot. Let me think about it.
He threw Trent Baalke under the bus.
Uh-huh.
Like
I
everybody
talked about it
knows
with
there.
he said I talked about it with Trent
Trent
a few
works
weeks
for
ago.
Trent works for Urban. Urban doesn't work for Trent. Trent's the general manager, but Urban doesn't work for Trent. Trent works for Urban. Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. And I'm just saying, if I own that team, I'd fire him because. And again, it's not any of the one things; it's all the things. There's no way that team can have any respect for him.
I don't think I would fire him.
I'd fire him.
It has been crazy if you think back to whenever the Jaguars announced Urban Meyer as head coach. What was that, 4 months ago?
No, it was more like 10 months ago. It's October now.
Oh, whoa, life comes at you fast. Well, in those 10 months, think about everything that has happened. And has there been any positive PR surrounding Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars since that decision, other than the first pick and getting Trevor Lawrence?
No.
It's all just been a one big mess started by Urban Meyer.
And what's amazing, we talked about this yesterday. Like every time a pro coach or a college coach goes to the pros, it's like, now you got to act differently. And all these guys have such freaking inflated sense of self-worth that they get in there and it's like, I can do it because I'm this great coach. And they're 0-4. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. 615-737-1025. We'll get your reaction on that. 615-737-1025. And there is one thing I will say about the Titans before we get to Fitz. There is one thing I will say about the Titans in regards to all of Urban's bullcrap this week. That's next. Stillman and Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. You know I love TriStar Moving. That's right. I moved with TriStar Moving almost a year ago, and it was the best moving experience I've ever had. And so if you're looking to move, you need to give my friends at TriStar Moving a call. They made the entire process so simple, and that's why their motto is TriStar Movers with 5-star service. From the initial phone call to the final signature, moving was a breeze. They offer home protection, and they'll cover your floors, banisters, railings, door jambs, and even the doors themselves. They're always upping the game when it comes to mover training, and they've got a brand new state-of-the-art storage facility in Mount Juliet. Their owners, Garrett and Robert, are true Nashvillians, and their company is the real deal and on the rise quickly because of the high standard they hold. If you're looking to move, give my friends at TriStar Moving a call, 615-640-1219, or visit their website at nationalmoving.org/radio, where you'll get 5% off your entire move. That's TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, nationalmoving.org/radio. Tell them Jared Stillman sent you. That's TriStar Moving.
Mike, do you have any conversations or texts with Urban through all these issues he's having either this week or even really since he's been in the NFL?
No, we haven't had any conversations since he's been in the NFL. We're focused on preparing this week and going down and trying to get healthy, trying to get ready for a new challenge.
Bad question, Joe. Hey, so have you had any conversations with Urban since, he's been through all this or since he went to the NFL? Why'd you have to say that, Joe? Why couldn't you just leave it at, have you had any conversations with Urban this week? Now, Vrabel would have said, no, I haven't had any conversations. But then that allows you to follow up with, so what are your thoughts on all the Urban drama?
What are your thoughts on the butt?
Which Vrabel would have said, I'm assuming, hey, our focus is on the Jaguars. They have a good football team, have a ton of respect. But then when you said NFL, it gave Vrabel the opportunity to say, no, I haven't had any discussions with him since he's been in the NFL. I don't believe that. That he hasn't had a single discussion with Urban since he's been in the NFL?
Yeah, no, that's a lie.
So, okay. Anywho, I'm going to say this about all the Urban drama. As funny as it is, and it is truly funny, and I got to be honest, it could not have happened to a better guy than Urban Meyer to hear all this slimy, skeezy, this morning, listening to Robbie and Rexroad, Michelle was like, oh, I didn't even know about the story about him hiding the domestic violence involving the wide receivers coach.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, Michelle, it happened.
Yes, it did.
And that's the kind of guy this is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why with Urban's wife, when she's liking tweets that say you deserve better than Urban, you remember that 2 years ago, Urban wanted us all to believe that he didn't know anything about the wide receivers coach abusing his wife, even though there were text messages from the wide receivers coach, the wide receiver coach's wife to his wife. And we were just all supposed to believe that Urban's wife saw those text messages and kept them to herself and didn't tell Urban. Like, come on, people. Like, he's a total slime ball. And so, again, couldn't have happened to a better person. But the Titans have no excuse to lose this game now. Like, this is me going from, like, the funny, like, let's laugh about fingers in the butt to let's be serious here for a second. Titans have no excuse to lose. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be calling for jobs on Monday if they do lose to Jacksonville, but I'm also leaving open the possibility that I think we can be talking about jobs if they lose to Jacksonville on Sunday. I cannot see how they lose this game. Jacksonville hates their coach. They probably always hated their coach. But now I think they probably feel empowered to hate their coach. They have a rookie quarterback. They have a terrible roster. They have a terrible coaching staff. They have no, synergy, given that their coach is too selfish to be around the team and fly home with them. And they are just embroiled in a controversy. There is no excuse to lose on Sunday. I don't care. I don't care if Ryan Tannehill, knock on wood, wakes up with the flu and can't play, and Logan Woodside, gets lost on his way to the game, and so Nick Westbrook-Akina has to take the snaps. I don't care. There is no excuse to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend. And I'm not going to talk on Thursday, tomorrow, probably about breaking down the Jags because they're not an interesting team. Other than their coach being a complete and total doofus, there is nothing that is interesting about the Jags. There is nothing that scares me about the Jags as a football team. You should go in there and you should embarrass them. And if you don't go in there and embarrass them, then it tells me more about you than it does them. And then I'm really going to be upset. And then I'm really going to be worked up. And then I'm really not going to say what I told Caroline. I asked her if it was okay if I could say it during the break, and we decided that it was not okay for me to say. But it is going to be that from a heart standpoint. No excuse Sunday to lose.
Well, I didn't think there was really any excuse for the Titans to lose to the Jags pre-Urban video, pre all of this scandal, because the Titans were coming off of a loss against the Jets.
Sure.
Against the Jets. At that point, it's like, you absolutely positively have to win this game against Jacksonville because they may be a worse team than the Jets, and that is saying something. So we have gone from you thinking the Titans could win 13 games this year, which if they lose to Jacksonville, they could still do, but it doesn't look very likely.
It would take a miracle.
It would take nothing short of a miracle. So we have gone from that conversation of the Titans potentially winning 11 to 13 games between my prediction, Ian prediction, and your prediction, to losing to the Jets and possibly, a game to the Jaguars. Like, that's how quickly we've come. Full circle.
Oh, if they lose to the
So
Jags,
if they lose to losing to the Jets is bad enough. I don't think they will lose to the Jaguars, but this is the NFL. Anything could happen. So if the Titans do lose to two teams, winless teams in back-to-back weeks, this is a fairly talented roster. You have to start pointing your fingers at someone at some point.
So
maybe
I'm not
where
even,
Urban pointed his finger.
No. I'm not even going to bring up the Jets right now. Like, as far as losing those 2 games back-to-back, which you're right about. I'm not even bringing up the Jets. I'm just talking about, given the situation, you are 2-2. You are the division favorite. You have the best quarterback in the division. You have been to the AFC Championship game. You are the reigning division champions. You have the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Rams coming up. And you're playing a team who right now has no faith in their coach, doesn't believe in them, hates them.
A rookie quarterback.
Not a good roster at all. And you lose to them, given the stakes, given the circumstances, given the week of distraction that they have had with their coach. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. This week, when I said this to you before the video of the fingers in the butt came out, and I said to you that, the worst person that losing to the Jets, the biggest loser other than you is the Jags. Because the Titans are going to be more motivated than ever this week to practice, and they're going to go out there on Sunday and they're going to kill the Jags. And I said it on Monday of last week. I was scared to death of the Jets. And I picked the Jets on Friday. And I think I've got a pretty good pulse of this team. And I know that these guys aren't quitters. So I expect them to go out there Sunday, and I expect them to put their foot up Jacksonville where Urban would put his fingers. And I expect them to do that. and I'm going to lose my mind if they don't do that on Sunday. If they don't win by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, I got a problem. Because this is embarrassing. What's going on there is embarrassing. That is, if you go back to Fox Big Newton kickoff last year and Urban Meyer's tears of team dysfunction, that's everything that they're going through right now.
Selfishness, distractions.
Trust issues.
Interesting that came from Urban Meyer.
Wild.
But, I understand that at the end of the day, when you look back on a season, you look at the wins and the losses. But I don't think that's going to be how I'm looking at the game on Sunday. That's not how I looked at the win against Indianapolis. That's not how I looked at the win at Seattle. Because, wins are great, and that put the Titans in a great position in the division. But it's the way in which they won those games that was so concerning to me.
Sure. Somebody tweeted me and said, I can hear the GM laughing. If that's in reference to me saying no excuses if they lose, I'm not guaranteeing that they'll win on Sunday. I am not guaranteeing
I don't think you can guarantee that.
I am not. I'm just saying they better. It's like, you tell your kid, you better pass this Spanish test. And they may not pass it. But there's going to be consequences if they don't. 615-737-1025. Jason Fitz, ESPN Radio. His thoughts on the Urban situation. His thoughts on the Titans' loss yesterday or Sunday. Goodness gracious, I don't know if people are still over it or not. Let's give something away here because I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now. You'll win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Carolina Hurricanes at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, October 9th. So good luck to you in that one. Big win, by the way, in overtime by the Predators. Philip Tomasino. I want to see the young kids this year. Overtime winner last night. So there is that. Fitz is next. It's ESPN 1025 The Game. So I put up on Twitter, our show is streaming live every day, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. So I put up on Twitter, kind of what we're talking about, and then people can watch the show. Mm-hmm. And I said, should Urban Meyer be fired for being a total doofus? We discuss now. And somebody responded and said, no. If you've ever been in a club and allowed a girl to dance up on you, you're a hypocrite for saying yes. Just my opinion, of course. That's not the doofusness I'm referring to.
Also, totally different situation. I think that any just regular person who's single may go to a bar and dance with someone is totally different than being the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars doing it when you're married. But also, that's not the only doofusry that Urban Meyer has participated in his tenure as the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And
head
it's
coach.
it's like the fifth doofiest thing that he's done this week. I mean, you talk to these football people, the fact that he didn't fly home on the plane is like a cardinal sin, which is amazing that a guy who's coached 3 games in the NFL has the gall to be like, nah, I'm going to do what every other coach wouldn't do. And with that, Jason Fitz joins us, presented by Blood Assurance. Give blood, give local, save lives. Fitz, your take on the Urban Meyer story of the year.
Well, look, there's a couple sides to this, to whoever said the hypocrisy moment of it. One, I would say, is that person going to hold a starting quarterback to the same standard? Because if this was a starting quarterback that had not flown back with the team and then had pictures come up like this that was also married, we would be freaking out about it. So I'm not going to hold a coach to some lesser standard than I would the quarterbacks that are so often railroaded for all of this. But then the biggest part of it is the reason that Urban Meyer, frankly, in my mind, should be fired today has nothing to do with the personal aspect of this. Fine. He can deal with Shelley Meyer and whatever that means to his life and have everything and every other weekend. If that's what he wants to do, cool. That's his decision. But when he stands up in front of his team and mishandles the first apology on Monday by essentially denying the full amount of the wrongdoing and then doing it in the wrong way with each position group, and now 48 hours later has to stand up in front of the team again, now he's lost any legitimacy he was going to have in that locker room. The only way you can get legitimacy back is winning, and this roster is not good enough to win. So if you're the Jags, I don't care about my head coach. I care about how do I protect Trevor Lawrence from being ruined. So far, Trevor Lawrence looks awful, and that's a stunning thing to most of us. The Jags are 0-4, and now you've got a head coach that's completely lost the locker room. Why are you keeping him around? There's a morals clause in almost every single contract. The fact that he lied to the organization about the full scope of what his interaction was, and you can see that by the fact that he tried to say he didn't touch her, and another video says he does. That's enough in and of itself to allow them a wiggle out, get out, and get a restart as soon as possible.
I also think, too, on top of it, like the fact that Urban comes with the baggage that Urban had from college, and the fact that he's not a likable guy, and the fact that he lied about essentially, and we all know he lied about domestic violence issues at Ohio State. Like this to me, like I am so rooting against Urban, and I talked about this the last 2 days. I never thought Urban was going to make it in the NFL. Never. I would have been shocked if he had Jacksonville in the playoffs or ends up with Jacksonville in the playoffs. But at the same time, like, it's bad for the Titans if Urban gets fired and Jacksonville goes out and finds a real coach. And yet, Urban's off-the-field issues for years and the way he has treated people, like, it makes me root for him to get fired. Is that crazy?
Well, no. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are in that category. And there's not a lot of likability to Urban Meyer, but the one thing that will forgive that is if you win football games, right? And that's what he always did in college. So you get forgiven for any of the transgressions that come with you. That's not the case in the NFL. And, what's laughable in all of this to me is that Urban Meyer is going to now be expected to stand up in front of his team and say, do the right thing. Always represent the brand well. Make sure you're making the right decisions. Like, be responsible. Take ownership of your mistakes. All of the things that coaches preach. And you've got a guy that's never done that and isn't doing that now. And the difference is these aren't a bunch of kids on scholarship that need him to continue their livelihood. These are a bunch of grown adults that play football for their business. It's the way they support their families. They don't have to listen to his you-know-what through any of this process. So his message to me was already going to ring hollow. But now to be in this situation behind the 8 ball, I think if it was any coach in the NFL that was in this situation, there would be a lot of questions to be asked. But a coach that's had zero NFL success being in this situation, there are no questions asked. Like, why keep Urban Meyer around?
Yeah. Fitzy with us. I said in the last segment, and previewing a Titan game, we usually start on Wednesday going to the next Sunday. The Jags are never a team that's worth previewing for 3 days. I'll just say this. Given the fact that they lost to the Jets last week, if they lose this game to Jacksonville, I may call for somebody's job on Monday. That you've got injury issues, and you lose to the Jets, and then you lose to the Jags. And if the Titans don't win by 45 on Sunday, I think I'm going to be furious. Is that an unfair expectation?
I don't know if they win by 45 because everybody takes the foot off the gas at some point, but they should win and win easily. I think that's fair. And look, I will say this loudly. I was doing a radio interview earlier today with Philadelphia, and they asked what the one biggest takeaway you can see so far from the early portion of the NFL season is. And not knowing you were going to mention what you just did, my biggest takeaway early on is that every team is decimated by injuries this year. And I would challenge Titans fans that are looking at it saying, oh, my God, the injuries on the roster. Just look, every single fan base right now is talking about it. And there's a lack of depth across the NFL. The injuries are through the roof across the NFL. Nobody seems to know how to handle it across the NFL. Like, bad line play is happening for so many teams because they're flat out are so many injuries across the spectrum. The true measure of an organization this year is going to be which GMs have the deepest Rolodex and the smartest pro scouting department that can find people that can step in right away. And that practice squad depth, as dumb as it sounds to say that out loud, matters. So I'm looking across the board and saying there are teams hurt everywhere. That can't be an excuse, especially when you're taking on a team that you are flat out better than. The Titans are flat out better than the Jets. I don't care what version of the Jets it is and what version of the Titans it is. They should have won that football game. And now they're going up against the Jags, a team that they are flat out better than. You've got to win the games where you are the most talented team on the field. That's the way you are successful in the NFL.
Yeah, Jason Fitz is our guest. If we had to go around the room, I would say that I'm neutral on Todd Downing. I would say that Ian is leaning towards leaning against. Is that fair, Ian?
Sure.
Caroline, what would you say your feelings on Todd Downing are? I'm neutral.
I'm leaning against. I think I'm with Ian.
Okay, so they're both leaning against. Derrick Henry's on pace to run for 2,000 yards this year. Tannehill does not look the same without Arthur Smith. You're a Raiders fan. You had a year of Todd Downing. How concerned should we be with Todd Downing right now?
Well, I mean, I'm going to stay consistent to what I said at the time. And, you know, Todd may be a really great guy, and I hope his family listens to the station. And I wish nothing but the best for individuals. But I've never seen a worse version of Todd Downing or of Derek Carr than I saw with Todd Downing. And in fact, if I go all the way back to my Raiders fandom, the only offensive coordinator I can remember that was worse than Todd Downing in his year with the Raiders was a guy that was legit running an Airbnb until he got hired off the streets to run Art Shell's office. Like that's how bad the offense was. There was a lack of game plan. There was a lack of continuity. There was a lack of identity. Carr looked lost in that process. Like, Downing was a glory child as a QB coach, and that's why they gave him the job for, at the time, Oakland, and it was the worst you could imagine. I absolutely didn't like the hire to begin with. You know that. I didn't mince words with it. I'm sure he's a great human being, but all I'm watching is another version of the same thing I saw before. Just because he's had time away from that job doesn't mean that he comes back much different. A lot of coaches don't. I think that Todd Downing is a liability to offenses that he coaches.
Wow. By the way, wasn't Airbnb a little bit after Art Shell's time?
He was. Sorry, it wasn't an Airbnb. It was a bed and breakfast.
I was like, wait a minute.
In Idaho.
I was like, didn't Art Shell coach in like the 80s? Like, what are we talking about?
So Art Shell came back for 1 year with the Raiders.
That's right.
And when he came back for that 1 year,
2006.
he hired his buddy. Yeah, he hired his buddy who legit had left football, and he and his wife were running a bed and breakfast in Idaho. He hadn't been in football in years, and they gave him the job as the offensive coordinator. And it was about what it sounds like, and Todd Downing was not much better than that.
Yeah, that's really, really disappointing. What was your biggest takeaway from week 4? And not just week 4, your biggest takeaway through the first 4 weeks of the season? It's weird because we're not technically a quarter of a way through the year, but we're really a quarter of the way through the year. What's been your biggest takeaway so far, Fitz?
Surviving inconsistency. I mean, I feel like the Rams are the best team in the NFC. I picked them preseason to go to the Super Bowl, and then they just lay an egg against Arizona, right? We've seen Arizona's defense play really well against the Titans and the Rams, but not as well in other games. We look at the Browns that at times look like world beaters, and at times look like they just don't even know how to play football. Like, I keep looking across the board and saying, can you survive your most inconsistent moments? That's, to me, the biggest portion. And everybody knows my Raiders fandom. Well, the Raiders got just lambasted on Monday night because the worst of that team showed up against a really good Chargers team. But that's also a really good Chargers team that a couple of times this year has looked lost themselves. So I feel like everybody has these inconsistent moments. How you survive those, how you handle the lack of momentum to get back any momentum is going to be really key to me. I think there are very few teams that I can say week in and week out right now look really, even Buffalo, that I think is a great football team, absolutely still laid an egg. So it's almost like we just have to all sit back and figure out from the best and the worst, like in the Olympics, when they take out the best score and the worst score, they give you the rest of them. That's what I feel like this NFL season is going to be. Take away their best moment and their worst moment, like that one game for each team, and you'll have a much better idea who teams are.
That doesn't make me feel good about the Titans. Jason Fitz, brought to you by Blood Assurance. Give blood, give local, save lives, ESPN Radio. Fitzy, we appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
You're the best, brother. I appreciate you.
Yep, Jason Fitz joining us on the program. I don't like that with Fitz. I agree with him, but I don't like it. Do you know why I don't like it?
Why?
What's the worst moment for the Titans this year?
The worst moment?
Yeah.
Losing to the Jets?
Okay, what's the best moment?
Beating the Seahawks?
Okay, so you've got the win over the Colts, which we didn't like, and the Cardinal game, which was an embarrassment.
Yes.
That's what we have right now.
Love that.
I'm saying if they lose this week, someone should.
I don't think they will.
I don't either. I think they'll win. And Chris
should.
Sanders said that they were going to win on Sunday, 35-10 in the pregame show. Mark Howard said it was going to be close, and I obviously picked the Jets. I think this is the week that you see like a 41-13 kind of game.
Now,
that's
weirdly enough, if the Titans would have beaten the Jets, I think I would have been a little bit more concerned about this game.
I don't know. We still would have fingers in the butt.
That's true.
And I don't think that the fingers in the butt go away.
It doesn't help situations.
I mean,
by
you just
any means.
have fingers,
Fingers going everywhere.
It is what it is. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. There is a Titan player who may be making his return to the lineup. And I got to say this. To me, it's his last chance. We'll discuss that coming up next. 1025 The Game has your chance to win Preds tickets during the month of October. Just post a picture of your radio dial set to 1025 The Game on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Tag the game and use hashtag TicketDash to be instantly qualified to win. Show us your dash, brought to you by Social Furniture. Shop local, shop social. Stillman and Company, it's ESPN 1025 The Game.
process of getting Darrington back at work today? I mean, how much would it help you if you could get him back? How much would he bring to the offense, maybe in the return game?
We'll see what's there. See how he feels. And on the kickoff return, we got to block better. I'm going to say it was returner error when 3 guys hit him. Could have Billy White Shoes Johnson back there returning if we don't block very well.
That was Mike Vrabel talking about something that happened on Sunday. I thought the coach was supposed to flush it and move on. Talking about kick return error or whatever you want to call it. Jared versus Joe, by the way, in 10 minutes. So Darrington Evans has been activated, or I shouldn't say activated. He has been designated to return. So the way this works, you have to sit out 3 weeks when you're on IR. Then you are designated to return. So you get 21 days. From that day, you have to be added to the active roster or else you are on IR for the rest of the season, which means that over the next 3 weeks, there's a chance Darrington Evans could be added to the Titans roster, and then they will have another pick from their 2020 draft class available to play. Now, going into the season, Darrington Evans was the backup running back. Derrick Henry was the guy. Darrington was the number 2, including the third down back. Then he got hurt in the first preseason game. We have not heard from him since. He's been on IR. He missed a boatload of games last year. In fact, I should have looked up how many games that he missed last year, but he missed a lot.
I think he's played 5 games in his Titans career.
Holy crap. So he missed 11 games last year, and he's missed 4 games already this year. Guys, I am done with Darrington Evans if he does not return off the IR. If it's like, Evans comes off, wasn't ready, give it a week, put him back in. And then he gets hurt again, done. I'd look to trade him. You probably can't get anything for him. But this is where, if we're looking at John Robinson's 2020 class, which already looks bad. Christian Fulton looks okay. Isaiah Wilson, you can take a red X through. Then there's Fulton. Then there's Evans. Then there's Murchison, who's, for a 5th-round pick, he's fine. Mm-hmm. Then there's Chris Jackson, who's okay. I'm trying to think who else was there. Cole McDonald, But again, like the 7th-round picks and stuff, like how much does that really matter? Evans is a 3rd-round pick. And Ian just said something during the break, which is true. The amount of carries that Derrick Henry's getting is not sustainable. Like, you cannot give Derrick the ball as much as you're giving Derrick the ball. Over the course of 17 games, get to the playoffs and expect to do something with it. But I am sick and tired of relying on injured players. And Darrington Evans has done nothing since he got to the NFL except be hurt. And so, to me, this is it. Like, this is it. And if you can't do this, then I got to go find another backup running back, or I got to invest more in McNichols, or I got to whatever. This is it to me. And the only reason people aren't outraged about Darrington Evans not being able to get on the field is because Jeremy McNichols has done so well over the last 2 years as the 3rd down back. And in hindsight, and again, hindsight is 20/20, and it's easy when you're sitting in this chair to second guess. But in hindsight, it does not look like a good investment to have used a 3rd-round draft choice on a situational back when you could just sign a guy off the street in Jeremy McNichols, who's been your situational back for the last 2 years. So this is another thing where if you're John Robinson, and I know you don't control Darrington Evans' knee or his hamstring or his hip or his heart or his whatever, you don't control it, but like I'm out on Darrington Evans if he can't come back healthy and be healthy for the rest of the year. Because you just can't rely on guys like that. Then I need to figure out my plan for backup running back, and it ain't going to be you. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, so you say he's out for, if he's not activated off of IR for how long, 3 weeks?
He can be practicing for 21 days, and then he's got to be up off.
What do you think his greatest contribution is to this team?
See, I think that they want Darrington Evans to be the backup running back. Not when he returns, they'll stick him in there and say, okay, you're in. But I think that, McNichols got 1 carry for 11 yards on Sunday. I think they want to give Evans the football 6 or 7 times.
Do you think that they would activate him to the active roster and put him out on the field because they want him to be the second running back? Because you think that he will actually make production for this team, or is it just to keep him off of IR for the rest of the season?
I don't know. I mean, I think they'll activate him and have him return kicks or something. But, I mean, he doesn't give the team anything. I mean, in all seriousness, and I thought this was kind of stupid at the time, but, like, remember when I lost my mind over the Monty Rice pick? You know, a third-round pick, and it's a middle linebacker, and you already had 3 of them. And so Monty Rice plays 0 on defense right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wait a minute, I thought you had a team that was 11-5 last year, won the AFC South, and was trying to compete for the Super Bowl. Not some team that, you know, was, oh, you know, this guy could be good down the road. And, like, when they drafted Darrington Evans in the 3rd round, I was like, why? A running back in the 3rd round. And ever since then, McNichols has come in and done a decent enough job as the 3rd down running back that's what a 3rd down running back should be. Some guy off the street. Shouldn't use a 3rd round pick on a 3rd down running back. Stupid. And so, I mean, look, the truth is with Robinson, like, it's all about wins and losses. And I like Robinson. Mm-hmm. But it's like, does it not feel like every day the lack of production from the 2 draft classes gets magnified even more?
Well, every week. Every week, every time the Titans hit the field, it is another reminder of how much the Titans have invested in trades or free agents and
get nothing in return.
And get nothing in return for those, or the way that the Titans have gambled on 1st-round picks, 2nd-round picks, and it hasn't panned out. Because, I mean, what are we seeing from this Titans draft class from 2020?
Well, it's like
not
a bust
your 1st-round
happens,
pick, not your 2nd-round pick.
It's like a bust happens, right? And that's okay. Like, you're going to bust on players in the 1st round. You're going to bust on players in the 2nd round.
Does Fitzpatrick not being on the active roster, that's not the end of the world. But it's not that just that isolated incident.
You can't consistently be missing on the kind of things they're missing on.
The Titans have 0 out of 2 of their past 1st-round picks on the field.
Yes. Here's what the Titans have of their last 2 draft classes right now.
Christian Fulton.
Larrell
Murchison.
But he doesn't really play that much. Christian Fulton, Chris Jackson, the end.
Wow. Rashad Weaver is hurt.
Weaver would be the 3rd, and he's facing criminal charges. So,
where are we with that anyways?
I don't know. Not my business, I guess.
I guess not.
And that gets on the back burner because he's hurt. So now you can go
your
focus on
2nd-round pick and your 4th-round pick from 2020?
4th-round pick is Tannehill. So your 2nd-round pick is Fulton. That's it. And Jackson was a 7th rounder.
7th rounder.
Yes. That's what you have right now.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
Joe Rexroad will join us. Jared versus Joe is next. Invigorate Health. That's right. If you're feeling old, you need to give my friends at Invigorate Health a call because they have hormone replacement therapy. They have IV treatments. They have Emsculpt Neo treatments that'll help you feeling like you're 25 again. They will restore your vitality to the way that it used to be. And I, again, have told you all about all their different treatments. They can bring them to you. So you want that IV therapy, they can bring it to you. Invigorate Health. InvigorateHealthTN.com. Maybe it's you're just feeling old. You're 45. You don't have the testosterone you used to have. That's where you need hormone replacement therapy. They do it. They do a fantastic job, and their certified nurses and physicians will have a consultation with you and make sure that you get exactly what you need. That's why I love telling you about them, because you don't feel old anymore. You don't feel fat anymore. You don't feel lethargic or bloated or all the things that come with that aging. When the testosterone goes down, Invigorate Health is here to help. Also, next Wednesday and Thursday, Invigorate Health will have their mobile unit at the Farmhouse at 210 Almond Street, which is only a few blocks away from Bridgestone Arena. They will be offering discounted COVID tests, since anyone going to the Predators game either needs to be vaccinated or have a negative COVID test. You can get that COVID test right there, just a couple blocks away from the arena. Everyone that gets tested also gets a $10 gift card to Farmhouse. So they'll be on site Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. and Thursday from 4 p.m. to 6:30. So again, that's Invigorate Health. They'll have their mobile unit at 210 Almond Street at the Farmhouse. That's next Wednesday and Thursday. So if you're going to the game, you need to get that COVID test, $10. That's right. Get it done right then and there. Invigorate Health. InvigorateHealthTN.com. My guys, Invigorate Health. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving, ESPN 1025 The Game. We are streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube thanks to the law offices of Amanda Gentry. Boy, I'm exhausted. We got a lot of Titans news. A.J. Brown practiced. Julio Jones did not. We got sent the Zapruder tape from the Colts game about showing the Julio Jones injury. We got Urban Meyer with his ridiculous press conference today as that drama continues and unfolds as they get set to take on the Titans. And we got Fitz who compares Todd Downing to a guy who runs a bed and breakfast. We've had a wild show so far.
I mean, bed and breakfasts are lovely. I'm sure he would run a fabulous bed and breakfast.
So Joe Rexroad joins us if Pawpaw Joe can get his computer to work. Joe Rexroad joins us on the program. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good. Hey, before we get into Jared versus Joe, give us a synopsis of what you saw at practice today for the Titans.
I mean, I basically put it on video. I saw like 3 drills. So A.J. Brown ran pretty well. Bud Dupree was out there, and then we were ushered out. You know how it goes in season. No, I mean, there's, in season you get a couple periods and then you're out of there.
I have no desire to cover practice in season because it's not like there's anything worth seeing. But at least you got the A.J. Brown stuff. Time now for everybody's favorite segment, Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexroad. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
1025 The Game.
Round 1.
Let's go.
I will re-up a question that I asked on Jared versus Joe a few weeks ago because I'm sure that both of your stances have changed since then.
Sounds kind of lazy, though, to ask the same question you've already asked.
Well, you tell me.
Okay.
Urban Meyer. Over under 3 years in the NFL because I said under and both of you acted like I was crazy. So, Joe, we will let you go first. First and foremost, I would like to apologize to Caroline Rexroad for whatever she heard on our radio show yesterday. But, Joe, Urban Meyer over under 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, a week ago you're questioning my hygiene, and yesterday it's like fingers in the butt left and right, my young precious child. But it happens. Yeah, did we say – so Jared and I both said over for sure. Is that right?
I believe so.
I just thought the money was too good. Like, he was making too much and they were committed too much, so they'd have to do it even though they'd lose a bunch of games. But, yeah, no, I thought that.
I want to go under like a couple of magic fingers under a pair of jeans. Absolutely.
I'll say this about Urban, and it is that, and I said this yesterday, how I think that if I was Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, I would turn around and make all the guaranteed money not guaranteed. And I'd be like, either we're firing you today or you agree to this new contract that has no guaranteed money, and you basically have to coach your way every single year to keep coaching it. And
have you ever heard of anything like that ever happening, though? I mean, it sounds great, but like,
do you think Bobby Petrino would have accepted that, though? Like in Arkansas, if they had said, hey, Bobby, you lied to us about the motorcycle, but you're a lot better coach than John L. Smith. So our choices are to either keep you with no guaranteed money or fire you in even more embarrassingly fashion. Bobby would have accepted that.
Well, I could believe just about anything about Bobby Petrino, so maybe so.
I mean,
but like
Urban,
it doesn't happen.
If you made that, if you gave that ultimatum to Urban, what do you think he'd say?
He's out.
No, Urban would not be out. He would keep doing the level of embarrassment. His wife is already liking tweets that say you deserve better than Urban. Like if you don't, like he's got nothing. He's got nothing if that happens. Like, he loses his job. They're not going to put him back on TV for a while. Like, he's got nothing. Yeah. So, my whole point is this.
Underrate the hubris here, Jared. Don't underrate his hubris at all. Because, believe me, it's a big part of the whole problem here.
I think Urban, I thought this time last week, I thought it was going to be 2 years And then after the second year, like Urban wouldn't like doing it and there'd be a college job or something else to do. And the Jags wouldn't want Urban anymore, so they'd mutually agree. So they'd pay Urban some money, but not all the money. And they'd mutually agree to break up after 2 years like Spurrier and Washington. I think Urban's gone at the end of the year. Now, after this.
Me too.
I wouldn't be surprised. Staying in the national landscape of the NFL, Jared, you go first. Agree or disagree? The Chargers could soon become the favorite to win the AFC.
So I'm going to say disagree. Well, define soon.
I would say one more win on a stage like Monday Night Football or one more win against the Chiefs.
No, they're
kind
not,
of win.
No, they're not the Buffalo Bills yet, and they're not. And I know they beat the Chiefs, but they're not the Chiefs. Like, they are right now in that second tier where Baltimore, Cleveland, and the Chargers now lie. And those are the three teams that are there. And it's unfortunate because there should be a fourth team. But the fourth team had to lose to the Jets. So the fourth team isn't there anymore. So right now, I think it's pretty simple to me. Kansas City and Buffalo are still the top two teams. Though I think if I were to rank it today, I'd have Buffalo ahead of Kansas City in the AFC. And I think the Chargers are still on a rung below. The Chargers have competed with the Chiefs for years. That 2018 season, I believe it's 2018. Yes, 2018 season. Like, the Chargers went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. So I know they beat the Chiefs last week, but it's happened before. They still need to be more consistent. I think Herbert looks great. I thought the Raiders were kind of phony. Like, the Raiders and the Broncos were kind of phony anyways. But I do think the Chargers. I think Herbert's the real deal, and I think they got a nice squad.
Joe, make your case. The Chargers could soon become the AFC favorite.
Well, I mean, I think they could be top tier. I think they could be on the top tier. And you said, Jared asked, what would this mean? You said another win over Kansas City. I mean, if they sweep the Chiefs, I feel pretty good about it. I'll say this. They have one loss to – I mean, I was skeptical of both of these teams. I was skeptical of the Cowboys. I was skeptical of the Chargers. I knew the Chargers had a good roster, but still, I mean, Herbert was good as a rookie, but I don't know what he's going to become this year. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. They have got players all over the field. They figured to kind of come back to. They had lost so many close games in ridiculous ways last year. So you tell me they're going to beat the Chiefs again. You tell me they get another big win like that, and they can find consistency. Then I absolutely buy that they're on the top tier. The favorite, I don't know about that. I mean, I think they're going to have to prove that in January, but they are certainly better than I thought they were.
And here's the other thing that's crazy about the Chargers is we always talk about the road to the Super Bowl, like what's your path to get to the Super Bowl. If they have to go to Buffalo in January, like they're not going to win. Like, and they may be better
Team
than
from
Buffalo,
LA.
but they are not going to go to Buffalo in January and win a game. So they better, to Joe's point, they better beat the Chiefs, and they better be the number one seed in the AFC, because if they're not, they are not going to Arrowhead and winning in January. They are not going to Buffalo and winning in January. They are not going to Cleveland and winning in January, and they may not be able to go to Baltimore and win in January.
I mean, those are but you're just cold places.
Yes.
On to the next one.
Yeah, warm other teams never win in cold places, Jared.
Very rarely do they ever in the playoffs. Well, Brad Johnson.
Small hands Tannehill, maybe.
Well, small hands Tannehill is terrible in cold weather. But it should be noted that Tampa Bay, off the top of my head, is the last warm weather team to go cold weather in the playoffs and win. They did it this past year in Green Bay. And they did it, obviously, when they beat with Brad Johnson, when they beat the Eagles in Philadelphia to go to the Super Bowl. But outside of that, I think most of the cold weather teams that win in cold weather are, like Eli and the Giants going to Lambeau Field. That's a cold weather team going cold weather.
Well, you also have to consider Tampa Bay's quarterback and the weather that he used to play in for his entire career.
Sure, but then there's also Brad Johnson.
Yeah, that's true.
You also,
but I'm saying in the case of last year.
You also have to consider the Cowboys getting screwed over about 7 years ago because the NFL didn't realize what a catch was back then. But, yeah.
Is that the Des Bryant one?
Yes.
Well, you know as well as I do that the NFL screwed up the first time on the Lions the week before to get the Cowboys in that game.
Absolutely.
And you know that the NFL still hasn't figured out what a catch is.
Somehow they're screwing it up in other ways now. It's incredible.
I mean, when I see when they have these replays about whether or not it's a catch, I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, well, what do you mean you don't? I'm like, I don't even need to look at it. I don't know. I don't know what to catch. I do not know what to catch. And they bring in like Terry McCauley, and it's like, Terry, what do you think?
Gene Steratore.
They have no idea. They're like, well, I see the ball, and I see the feet, and I see the hands. This will be an interesting call, Jim. Like, Gene, what is it? He doesn't know.
On to the next one. Joe, you first. The Titans should have made a run for either Stephon Gilmore or Jalen Smith or both.
Well, I think certainly kicking the tires on Gilmore was a good idea. I mean, like the first thing when that comes up, and I heard you guys talking about this, and I agree in general. Anytime someone comes up like this, it's a total frenzy on social media. You got to get him. Oh my gosh! But look, Caleb Farley was back today, but I don't have a lot of confidence that Caleb Farley is going to matter to this defense this year. Jenkins doesn't look great. You know, Fulton has been, I think, one of the better individual, performers on this team, but you got Elijah Molden now is like, they'd rather go Breon Borders on the outside and move Fulton inside than have Molden on the field all of a sudden. So I think Gilmore has some good football left in him. And I think certainly it would have been worth looking at him and seeing what you could have done. As far as Jalen Smith, I don't know. I mean, he's an inside linebacker. It's actually a position where you have depth, although the depth won't be there next year potentially. But I'm more on the Gilmore front. I would say yes.
So I'm going to say no, and here's why. The Titans at some point have to stand by the moves they made. Like Joe sitting here saying, well, they drafted Farley in the first round, but, I don't expect much out of him. And they signed Jack Rabbit Jenkins. I don't expect much out of him. And, they won't play Elijah Molden. And, at some point, you got to stand by the decisions you made. You made the decision on Caleb Farley. You took the risk. We all said, we kicked it around the room on the show. Would you draft him after you heard that medical? And all three of us, not Joe, but all the three of us said no. And they went and drafted him. Molden, you made that choice in the third round. You got to live with it. Jenkins, you let go of Dennis Kelly and Adoree Jackson, and you went out and signed Jack Rabbit Jenkins. So you have to live with that. This can't be every time you acquire somebody and you don't like them, you just go out and acquire somebody else. This is a socialist government league where everybody has the same salary cap. You only have so many picks. They already made their trade that everybody wanted them to make. They made it for Julio Jones, and he's hurt, so they don't have him, and you got to live with it. And what does living with it mean?
React to new information. So don't react to new information. If your approach is, I'm just going to stand by my moves, my God, you're going to get fired in 2 years as a GM.
No, but they can't make it.
You react to new information.
No. They can't make a trade to cover up every bad decision that they've made. They can't keep doing it. If you you draft Isaiah Wilson, that doesn't work out. So now you got to find a way to make up for it. So at some point, you got to make a good move, and you got to put the good move out there, and you got to let the move that you thought was a good move be a good move. And if all your moves are bad moves, that you then have to go make more moves in order to fix your bad moves, then you should be fired.
Well, that's fine, but the move that really this would be correcting is not Farley. I think it's kind of obvious when you draft that guy who hasn't played in 2 years and is coming off multiple backs. That you were expecting that could take a while, but Jenkins is what you're trying to make up for with a move to get Gilmore. You have to go with information as it changes and not sit there and say, I'm standing by this move. By golly, I made this move and I'm going to stand by it for as long as it takes.
So we're mad at the Titans. We're mad at the Titans because they took old guys and injured guys, and now the old guys are old and the injured guys are injured. Now you want to go get an old injured guy.
I'm saying you should look at it. You don't just dismiss it because, I've already made some corner moves. Can't look at that one. I've made my corner moves, by golly.
They obviously didn't they obviously didn't have any interest on him because it was a 2023 sixth that he ended up being acquired for. Titans had no interest in Stephon Gilmore because he's old and he's hurt, and you don't want old and hurt on your football team. Guess what Jack Rabbit Jenkins is? Old. Guess what Farley is? Hurt. And now you want old and hurt.
Yeah, but Gilmore is better than Jenkins has ever been.
Jenkins was the top corner on the market in 2015.
In 2015.
Or 2016. And what's his name was the top corner in the market 2018. So he's saying better than he's ever been. They were both the top corner in the market.
Okay. He's better than he has ever been. Yes. Period. Please don't try to argue with that one.
By the way, I see no difference, and let me just say for the record, and I'm not thrilled with Jackrabbit Jenkins either. I see no difference in the first 4 games for Jackrabbit Jenkins than I did the first 4 games for Malcolm Butler. And Malcolm Butler got burned the first couple of games, and everybody lost their bananas. And guess what? Malcolm Butler ended up working out pretty well. Jackrabbit Jenkins has been in the NFL long enough. I have a feeling that he'll be okay this year.
Titans better hope so.
Moving on to the college side of things, Cincinnati gets a win at Notre Dame.
Very impressive.
Jared, you go first. That solidified their spot in the college football playoff.
No. You got to, first of all, we got to remember that if Penn State wins out, they're in. Because they're in the Big Ten, and they would have beat Ohio State. They would have won the Big Ten.
And if they win the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah. And then Oklahoma, who is not impressed, if Oklahoma wins out and wins the Big 12, I got to believe that they're going to put Oklahoma, an undefeated Oklahoma, in the playoff before they would put Cincinnati.
Oklahoma looks terrible.
Cincinnati, I mean, I know Cincinnati feels good about themselves, and they should dominate that AAC. But there's a difference between should dominate it and have dominated it. So all these games against Temple and Tulsa and Memphis and, all those bums, they better go blow them out. And if they don't, then I can reconsider. I think right now, if I was doing it, I'd put them as the 3rd best team in the country. But your question was solidified their spot in the playoff. Mm-hmm. I am not solidified with Cincinnati.
Okay. Joe?
Well, nothing's solidified. I mean, other
Georgia
than the top
is
2,
solidified.
Yeah, Georgia and
other
Alabama
than the
feel
top
like they're solidified.
2, right. But if Notre Dame wins out, and I think the only game that I would wonder about is this next game at Virginia Tech, Cincinnati undefeated will get in over Oklahoma undefeated. I believe this because that is a better win than Oklahoma will have. And also because, look, there is a human element, which frankly I like about the selection room, and everyone is sick of Oklahoma. And there's so much complaining about the group of 5 never getting an opportunity. This is a great opportunity to say, here you go, undefeated team. I think they're better than Oklahoma. The eyeball test says they're better than Oklahoma. That win over Notre Dame will say they have something better than Oklahoma, even if Oklahoma has an overall stronger schedule on a weekly basis. So Cincinnati wins out and Notre Dame doesn't completely fall all over itself. Bearcats are in.
So I don't disagree, except for the fact that I do think that Oklahoma – the one thing I've always said about the college football playoff is I do feel like they're somewhat beholden to television. And Floyd used to get so worked up every time I'd say this. But I always feel like whoever holds the purse strings ultimately controls the verdict. And ESPN kind of runs the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Would they, if Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State, the 2nd best team in the Big 12, wins the Big 12 championship, and has a top draft pick, maybe quarterback, would they want Oklahoma in over Cincinnati? And I think at the end of the day, I am with Joe. The complaining of years past for the UCFs and the Memphises I think that's going to help Cincinnati. But I still do wonder if Oklahoma gets their act together and plays pretty well in October and November, if that would be enough to have them jump Cincinnati. And if Cincinnati wins a game, 35-31 against some bum AAC team, I could see people be like, Cincinnati didn't look very good this week against Tulane. And that, I think, could affect it.
I think the degree of difficulty for opponents, because Oklahoma has played some bad opponents pretty closely so far this season, but Oklahoma playing close to West Virginia is different than Cincinnati playing close to Tulane or Memphis, hypothetically speaking.
So, Jared, do you think that the ESPN guy goes in there?
I think there's a man by the name of Bill Hancock, and I believe that he ushers those thoughts in there to the group if he sees that he needs to have that type of discussion. See Ohio State in the playoff in 2014.
No, that was the right move.
No, it was not.
And then they won it. Yes,
no,
it was, and then they won it.
Baylor should have been.
Yes, it was, and then they won it.
Baylor should have been in the 2014 playoff. And I'm not taking anything away from Ohio State because they got in and they won the championship. But Baylor had the better resume, and Baylor should have been in.
I don't get how you can say that.
Yeah, it was very close, Jared. But like to look at that example, say TV rules. You take anyone in the sport and they're going to be splitting a room on that thing. Forget TV. So that's just a bad example.
Alabama gets into the college football playoff and they didn't even win the SEC West. You tell me any one of these schools. You tell me any one of these schools that isn't the biggest TV draw. That you tell me that's not the biggest TV draw, they can get in there. You know the two teams that have made
Alabama
it to the playoff.
didn't deserve to be in that year?
You know the two teams that have made the playoff. The two teams that have made it into the playoff in which they did not win their conference. And I don't count Notre Dame last year because that was all kind of kooky. But the two teams that did not win their conference and made the playoff, Ohio State and Alabama.
Which happened to be two very good football teams.
Yeah, it sucks to be in the same division as like an all-time great team, which is what Alabama was, and the one game they lost. There's no argument that they shouldn't have been in the college football, other than that stupid, they didn't win their division. They're in the same division as LSU.
No. That was Auburn. No. That 2018, that was Auburn. Auburn won the West. Played Georgia in the title game. Georgia beat Auburn. Georgia got in. Alabama got in. Alabama beat Georgia in the title game.
Yeah, my bad. I got the LSU game. Listen.
Now, that LSU team was an all-time great team.
Was absolute. Yes. But that Alabama team, too, which won it, right? Tua? This is the Tua year we're talking now, right?
This is the year that Tua win in.
And I'm not saying that Alabama team shouldn't have been in there. I'm just saying the Ohio State team. But I'm just saying they put the TV teams in. They put the TV teams in. Did you see baseball yesterday? The highest rated.
They're going to get ratings.
Every year we see the ratings, and they're so much better when there's an Alabama or an Ohio State. But highest rated baseball game on ESPN since 1998 yesterday. And do you know why? It wouldn't have been that way if it was the Mariners who got in. It wouldn't have been that way if it was the Blue Jays. So when you've got subjectivity, you can just, let's see. If we had to pick two teams out of the four, between the Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, and Blue Jays, guess what TV would have picked? And I'm just saying, TV holds the purse strings on this.
So
moving on, because there's one more I want to get to.
Real quick, Alabama crushing Oklahoma gets way better ratings than Alabama crushing Cincinnati? No.
I think they do.
I don't know.
The SEC ain't calling Cincinnati, say, hey, come into the league.
Moving on to the next one.
The semifinals will get big ratings, period.
Joe, you go first. Vols against Mizzou this past weekend. What was it? The offense is figuring things out. They're starting to click, or Mizzou's defense is just that bad?
Yes. Absolutely. I'm all in on both. Look, I mean, Missouri, they fired the D-line coach, Steve Wilkes. I mean, it's bad. They couldn't get lined up. It was bad. It was very bad. Couldn't get lined up. They apparently don't know what, gaps are, run fits and stuff. It's bad. But look at Hendon Hooker and some of the decisions and passes he's making. We already knew the receiver skill was very good. Bayless Jones is now starting to come into his own. Look, Tyon Evans is a special player.
Mm-hmm.
And the tempo, again, it's like there's so many teams run this tempo, but not many teams run it like that. This is like the pure product here, okay, that Josh Heupel has. So they are figuring things out, and I think they're going to put one on South Carolina too. Not 62, but they're going to put one on South Carolina. They're going to score on Ole Miss. They're going to blow out South Alabama and Vanderbilt, and that overall is a pretty good outcome for this team. So you think about early, like that Bowling Green game, and I think some of it is the quarterback change. I mean, Hendon Hooker is better than Joe Milton right now. They're absolutely figuring things out.
I think the biggest figuring out is that they figured out who their quarterback is. I mean, I don't know how, as like an offensive team, you can figure out what you're going to be if you don't know who your quarterback is going to ultimately be the guy that leads your team. And I would argue that Joe Milton was not Tennessee's biggest gain and Michigan's biggest loss, but that Hendon Hooker has been a nice addition at quarterback this year for Josh Heupel. And I think that's a big part of it. He's right about Tyon Evans. I mean, he is a bad boy.
So is Bayless Jones.
And so I think the thing here that this is a good step for Heupel. It proves that the scheme's going to work in the SEC. Does it mean that they're going to win, that they're going to get a defense in here, they're going to get recruits in here to compete with the big boys? It doesn't mean that yet. But the scheme will work in the Southeastern Conference, and I think that was something with Heupel that I was a little nervous about. I know he was an offensive coordinator at Missouri, but it's different when you're the head coach. I think they've got to clean up the discipline issues, which they didn't have a problem with this past weekend, which was good. I think they'll beat South Carolina. The big one now for me is Kentucky. You know, if they can be competitive with Kentucky, I think that's going to be a good sign for Josh Heupel. But I do think they're figuring it out because they at least have a guy that I trust at quarterback.
Are we ready to tally?
Do you like my little nudge at Joe's headline?
I did like that. That was a nice little sprinkle in there.
Thank you.
But last week, you came at me for selecting you to win. The week before, you came at me for selecting Joe to win. So I've quickly learned that I simply cannot win here. I do have to say there's two of these points that I think are kind of my deciding factors here. The Titans absolutely should not have even thought about going for Stefan Gilmore. This team is way too full of old guys, injured guys, and he happens to be both. And I think the last thing the Titans should do is go for another guy who's coming off of an injury. So I have to give point to Jared there, but also point to Joe because he's 100% right that if Notre Dame wins out the rest of the season, Cincinnati absolutely gets in over Oklahoma.
Oh, wait. If Oklahoma goes out there and beats Texas this weekend by 35 points, you don't think people are going to be like, whoa, did you see Spencer Rattler?
But I don't think that Oklahoma will beat Texas by 35 points.
I don't either.
And since when is Texas all of a sudden the landmark for, you beat Texas, you're a good team?
It's a top 25 team.
Okay. So is Auburn. I don't think Auburn's that great either.
No, but nobody who's beating Auburn is in this discussion. This is how you compare teams in the playoffs.
You can't say, they're a top 25 team, so beating them is, all of a sudden they're in the playoffs. Oklahoma, if you're going to use the eye test, which the committee apparently says they use,
they haven't done
Oklahoma
it yet.
Has not looked very good.
No, I agree. They haven't done it yet. If we're talking about now, Cincinnati's way better than Oklahoma.
Yes.
But you talked about solidifying the spot. My point was, if Oklahoma turns into the Oklahoma that people believe that they should be, then I can see them slipping them in over Cincinnati if Cincinnati doesn't dominate these AAC teams, because none of us are going to watch those games, and the final score is all that's going to matter.
You don't know my Cincinnati, Eastern Carolina watching habits.
Yeah, exactly. So none of us are going to watch those. Even Joe, who watched the Tennessee Tech game on his phone at the airport. Even Joe is not watching those games.
I have to give the win to Joe.
I know you did.
Yep. The win's to Joe. You yelled at me last week for picking you, so Joe gets the win.
It's all bull crap.
And Joe made a great point about Notre Dame. So Joe, congratulations on your new champion.
If they
this
lose,
week of Jared
if Notre Dame
Joe.
loses another game along the way, I'm taking this victory back.
You will do no such thing.
I'm kind of like the Titans, I lost to the Jets last week, but we're back on track this week.
Big win at Seattle this week. Congratulations, Joe.
I said earlier today, if the Titans lose on Sunday to Jacksonville, which I don't expect to happen, but if they lose on Sunday to Jacksonville, I feel like I am allowed, and I don't know whose job I would call for, but I do feel like I am allowed to on Monday start calling for jobs.
I think you should call for Amy Adams-Strunk to sell the team if they lose Sunday. Just go all the way to the top, man.
Hey, I'd like to be like you and write columns and then say, but I said if in my column, if. So there you go. Joe Rexrode.
Hey, it's all there in plain English for you, Jared.
There you go. Joe Rexrode, Jared versus Joe. We will do this battle again next week. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. Fury and Wilder are back in the ring this Saturday to complete their epic trilogy. And FanDuel Sportsbook is giving new customers exclusive 30-1 odds on either fighter to win. That's right. Now is the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot because you can win $150 on a $5 bet. I'd watched the fight almost, a year and a half ago, and Fury kicked his rear end. So I'll go with Fury. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and sign up with the promo code JGM to get in on all the action. That's promo code JGM. 21 and older in present Tennessee. New users only. $10 first deposit required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus $150. Bonus for Tennessee users fulfilled in site credit within 72 hours. Tennessee site credit expires 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals to check out Nashville's best deals. Current deals include half-off gift cards for Retro Snow, Fat Cat Slim, Central Barbecue, Joyland in East Nashville, and Bad Axe Throwing Nashville. Get your deal now at theGameNashville.com/deals. Urban Meyer had a press conference today. Do you think he talked at all about the Titans?
I don't think so.
You think he was asked a question about the Titans? I did not listen to the full Urban press conference.
It was like 15 minutes. I listened to the first 5 to 10 minutes.
Did he get asked any questions about fingers in the butt?
He, not directly questions about fingers in the butt, but I think they were kind of dancing around saying those words, yes.
How were they dancing around?
Well, there were a lot of questions about Urban not taking the flight home with the team. That was a majority of the first third of the press conference, I would probably say. And then a lot of questions just about the incident over the weekend.
Are you as offended about the not taking the flight home as all the football people are? Because the football people getting offended by it makes me more offended by it. Because it's like, well, if the football people say we should be offended by it, then we should be offended by it.
Right. When I initially heard it, I don't think I really thought too much into it, just because I don't know what that symbolizes, as a football player in the football world. I didn't understand that is such a big deal, so I didn't think twice about it until I heard the backlash from so many former players, from people in the league, about oh my God, that is a cardinal
Pat
sin.
McAfee was screaming he could not believe that.
And I don't think I realized that it was that big of a deal, but since all the backlash from former players, I think I've realized okay, no, that is a really big deal. And if people are making such a big deal about it, it probably never happens that a coach doesn't take the flight home with a team.
Let's go to your phone, 615-737-1025. By the way, I have noticed Joe Rexrode has been responding to people in the text line.
He has, and they're hilarious.
It's like one guy was like, I feel like I'm listening to Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless.
He said, Jared is both.
Joe Rexrode responded, Jared is both. Whoa.
And the texter said, I'm sorry, I should have said that. And Joe said, it's okay.
I am convinced that Joe Rexrode was just a popular columnist before he met me. And I feel like I have made Joe Rexrode more of a hero. It's like a wrestling thing. And I guess I'm like the heel, which is ridiculous because I should be The Rock.
Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Drop the mic, walk off, jabroni, whatever. But I feel like I should be like The Rock. But instead I feel like I'm treated like Triple H. And I'm not even really a wrestling person, but
I would beg to differ.
People. I did not go to the wrestling performance the other night.
The wrestling performance.
I did not. Chase went.
Did he?
Oh.
I hope you had a good time.
You think Chase would miss the wrestling performance?
I'm bummed that I did miss it because I do have to say the only thing that got me through the first month or so of quarantine was WWE.
Did you actually?
Oh, I watched it every single day because it was all the stupid stuff on ESPN, slippery stairs and cornhole and WWE reruns, and that's what I watched every night.
I always felt like ESPN during the COVID shutdown was all studio draft special shows and old basketball and old baseball. And the thing that got me about those old games was the old slogans. I forgot about them. Where it's all right, let's take a look at our starting lineup for the San Francisco Giants presented by Taco Bell. Taco Bell reminds you to think outside the bun.
Yes, yeah.
I'm I forgot about
the old logos of some of the brands.
It's time now to take a look at the first pitch of the game presented by T-Mobile. T-Mobile, are you in my five?
Are you in my five? What does that even mean?
So they used to have a thing with T-Mobile where you could either call or text unlimited to 5 people, and that was your 5.
I don't even know if I would have 5 right now, to be honest.
I would have 1, honestly.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's go to the phones.
One texter texts in and says, John Robinson is living off of 4 moves. DeMarco, Tannehill, Henry, and Simmons. 2 good draft picks since he's been here. Without the 2 lucky trades, he would get a grade of an F-, which I don't even think that's a real grade.
How can a general manager who's had 5 winning seasons and 5 cracks at it be, you say, F-? I know, you say,
he's a C- at best with the Tannehill move.
First of all,
Henry pick.
Can we talk about Jeffrey Simmons for a second?
Sure.
So Kinston has called in and texted in, and Kinston, who is a very loyal listener, through the COVID shutdown, called every day type listener. Kinston has been banging the drum a little bit on this idea that Jeffrey Simmons is not the bad boy beast that he was supposed to be. he's kind of onto something. Like, Simmons is a good player, but that wasn't what we were promised when he was drafted. Like, that wasn't what we were promised when he started his first NFL game and he sacked Phillip Rivers twice in the Chargers. Like, we were promised that Jeffrey Simmons would be like, Warren Sapp and Aaron Donald and the term they kept using was game wrecker. And they compared him to Albert Hainsworth. Now, Albert weighed like 100 more pounds than him, but still, like, that was the kind of impact we were told Simmons was going to have, was that game wrecker. And he came in right away and did it, and then he disappeared. And then when he disappeared, like, it was kind of, well, he came off the knee injury, and so he was just getting going. And so then next year he was supposed to be the game wrecker, but then they played him way too many snaps, and they had nobody any good on the team on defense, so there was nobody there to kind of be around him. And so I'm watching, and I see Harold Landry all over the place, and I see Danico Autry all over the place. I don't see Jeffrey Simmons all over the place. And I don't care if you're double or triple teamed. Guess what? Albert Hainsworth got double teamed. Aaron Donald gets double teamed. Warren Sapp got double teamed.
That's what happens when you're a good player.
Yeah, all the good players get double teamed. It's like every team the Titans play tries to stop Derrick Henry. And guess what? They don't, because Derrick Henry is a great player. And I look at Simmons and I'm like, man, Simmons, and again, the expectations are incredibly lofty. But I'm starting to side with Kinston a little bit that, where's the war daddy that we were told that Jeffrey Simmons was supposed to be? Like, time to pick it up a little bit. What's next?
Joe Texan, not Joe Rexrode, I don't believe, but Joe Texan, and says, how can you pick the Titans to win when they lost to the Jets? The Jags most always play the Titans tough, except on Thursdays. But if the Titans lose, it'll prove the narrative correct that the Titans play to their competition.
Now, if Titans lose, someone's going to get fired.
I think if the Titans lose, it'll prove a whole lot more than they play down to their competition.
Like, I'm just saying it right now. And I don't want anybody to think, because I know that I think sometimes people unfortunately label me as a little reactive or maybe overreactive.
I think that would be fair.
And I don't think I'm all that reactive. I mean, like, and I'll say it for that, like, most of the things that I do in life are pretty well thought out. Because you do a lot of the thinking with me.
Yes.
So it's like,
there is a lot of pre-work done.
But I don't want anybody to think that I am overreacting on Monday when I start calling for somebody's job if they lose to the Jags. Because I'm telling you on Wednesday, if you lose to that crap-ass team after the crap-ass week that they've had and the game that you played on Sunday against the Jets, and you don't come out just a little bit more motivated and you can't beat that bum team, now we got some serious problems. I mean, serious problems. And it's one of those things to me where if people don't get fired on Monday if they lose, then I'm taking it up a peg. So if I think you should fire the defensive coordinator and you don't fire the defensive coordinator, that's fine. But now I'm not worried about the defensive coordinator anymore, and the next person I'm coming for is you.
And I think this idea that the Titans play down to their competition, play up to their competition, I from what I have seen, yes, that is true, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If the Titans lose to the Jags saying, oh, well, the Titans always play down to their competition, that's not an excuse to me. If you consistently lose to teams that you are better than, that's not just that's classic Titans. Right. No, that's like a fatal flaw in your football team.
That is the sign of a not very good team.
Yes.
And we were promised good team. And you don't trade for Julio Jones. And see, this is what's great. This is why general managers and coaches don't ever put out expectations before the year. Boy, are you excited about this year? Well, we got to put the work in. You never hear, well, Bob, I think we're an 11-5 team right now, but I think if we can, get a little bit better and maybe have some things go our way, I think we can be a 13-3 team. Yep, Steve, your question. Like, they don't do that. And that's why they don't do it, is because they don't ever want you to say, well, you said. But the truth is, when you trade for Julio Jones, you trade a second-round pick and you take on $15 million in salary, your message to everybody is, we're a Julio Jones away. Mm-hmm. So if you take that risk and then you stink and you lose to the Jets and the Jags, now you're not what we thought you were, because that means you're not very good. And that's when, I think it's time to start thinking about making some moves. 615-737-1025. What else we got?
We have one texter who texted in and says something very important that I would love to tell you. And Rick texts in about Urban Meyer and his potential future with the Jaguars. You said if you owned the team, you would fire him. Rick says, this isn't Dr. Phil. This isn't Disneyland. This is the NFL. You don't know what the team thinks of Urban. It's not as bad as Robert Kraft.
No, I mean, it's way worse than Robert Kraft. Here's the thing. The Jags players don't care about Urban putting his finger in a girl's butt.
No.
The Jags players care about the fact that he brought in Tim Tebow. They care about the fact that he brought in a racist strength coach. They care about the fact that when they're 0-4, he took a mini vacation out to the bar. They care about the fact that they're embarrassed that everybody they know is like, that's your coach? Like, nobody on the Patriots cared about Robert Kraft going to the Asian spa and getting a happy ending. And nobody cares. Like, I shouldn't say nobody cared about Robert Kraft doing it. But for the most part, most people didn't really care.
No.
And honestly, like, nobody cares that if it was just the first video of Urban and the girl, nobody would have really cared. So it's not about, like, which is more amoral. Clearly, like, it's against the law to do what Robert Kraft did. So but like, I'm not outraged by that, and I'm not outraged by people smoking pot. But I am outraged by the guy over the last 15, 20 years who's never said sorry for anything, who's never told the truth about anything, getting embarrassed. And those players can't stand him because he thinks he's the almighty Ohio State Urban, and they're 0-4. And he's going to have the gall to tell Trevor Lawrence, hey, Trevor, in Vegas,
take it easy on your bachelor
don't be going
trip.
crazy. And I'd be furious right now if I was Trevor Lawrence for you bringing up my bachelor party with your bull crap. I'd be
that wasn't cool.
furious.
You threw him under the bus. That was
I was
not
thinking about
cool.
this. Like, if the Jags players really do hate Urban, it wouldn't surprise me. And this would be like a kind of like a testing the fire kind of thing for the veteran players to go to Trevor and go, you got to be the one that goes to the owner and say fire him. Because if Trevor walks into Shad Khan's office and
their
says,
first round pick, the future of
he's
their
the
franchise.
And Shad knows it too. If he walks in there and says, I can't play for this guy, you got to fire him. I think fire him.
Well, there was a texter who texted in earlier and said, I talked to a friend who used to play in the NFL, and he said it would go against everything I believe in, but if I played for Urban Meyer, I would purposely tank to fire him.
That's wild.
Isn't it?
That is wild. Carolines, we got another big baseball game. We had a good baseball game last night.
We did.
We got a big baseball game tonight to bet. We'll do that next with Caroline, Stillman, and Company. We're delivered by TriStar Moving. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, delivered by TriStar Moving. How about that baseball game last night? I enjoyed it.
It was a fun game.
ESPN says highest rated game on ESPN since 1998.
That's great. I wonder what 1998 game that was.
And think about how many people. I'm going to guess it was like a McGuire.
Like a Mark
Sosa.
McGuire. Yeah, I was going to say that too.
And think about how many more people had cable TV than they do now. In 98.
Do you think they bring any sort of like digital analytics into that?
I have no idea how they come up
TV
with
eyes? I don't know.
I don't know, but that tells you how big the wild card game
cool.
was. We got two big, not Yankees, Red Sox, but we got two big ones tonight. The Cardinals and the Dodgers. The game is on 6:30 right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, but now it's time to bet it with Carolines.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Carolines. Here on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sports book for over 25 years. You can sign up at BetUS.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit. Cardinals at Dodgers National League wildcard game. Cardinals are throwing out Adam Wainwright on the mound. He's 17-7 in the regular season with a 3.05 ERA. But since September 1st, he is 4-0 with a 3.44 ERA with 19 strikeouts in 6 starts. Waino has been absolutely ridiculous for being like 150 years old.
Yep.
Dodgers, Max Scherzer on the mound, St. Louis native actually, fun fact. He's 15-4 in the regular season with a 2.46 ERA and 30 starts between Washington and LA. Since September 1st, he's 3-0 with a 2.29 ERA. Even though Max Scherzer has better stats on the season, I'm going to take the Cardinals to win tonight on the money line. I've seen between plus 180 and plus 205 on the books, but I'm going to take the Cardinals for no reason other than they are just absolutely red hot.
Is that a hard pick?
At first, yes, but no, it's a head pick. It's because I do love my Cardinals, as much as I would like them to win. Adam Wainwright's curveball is his bread and butter, and the Dodgers have had issues with curveballs all throughout the season. So according to StatCast, there are 2 Dodgers batters in their projected lineup with the 0 run value against curveballs and 4 with a negative run value against curveballs.
Can I guess?
I don't know who it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know who it is. They didn't give me the deeds.
Definitely Max Muncy. Other than
Who
that,
else?
I can't tell you.
Yeah, I
Will
don't know.
Smith, maybe? I don't know. I love
don't
Will
know.
Smith. I'm going to take the Dodgers tonight. I think the Dodgers have the second best. I think the Dodgers have the best team in the National League. I mean, they've been in the World Series like 7 years in a row. And I'm rooting for the Cardinals. But I think Scherzer was brought in for this reason, was to pitch tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Cardinals have been red hot. But in baseball, momentum is only as strong as tomorrow's starting pitcher. So I'm going to take Scherzer and that Dodger bullpen. So I'll take the Dodgers over the Cardinals tonight.
Carolines is brought to you by BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook for over 25 years. You can sign up at BetUS.com, mention game, and get a sign-up bonus on your first deposit.
ESPN Radio coming up next, and then we've got that game, Cardinals and Dodgers tonight. We are out of here. We will see you tomorrow at 2.